Welcome to the Solution Podcast, everyone. We've got a great debate for you guys. That systemic racism exists. We've got John Michel here, a regular. We've got Damon, who's new. And this should be a great debate, very educational. I know you guys are going to enjoy it. It's going to be a structured debate. So we're going to have 7 minutes opening statements, 10 minutes cross examination, and about 50 to 45 to 50 minutes um, open discourse. And then after that, yeah, we can bring in other people in and have a chat and so on. But yeah, let's keep it respectful and let's have a great debate. And shout outs to anyone watching as well. Yes, guys, how is everyone doing?
Doing good.
Yeah, doing good, doing good.
David? Yeah, great, great, great. All right. Who would like to start first? Someone volunteer.
I could go first.
Okay, all right, no worries. All right,
Okay.
so got my stopwatch here. It's bro. Opening statements. Let's hold on a second, I'll tell you when. Yep, when you're ready, bro.
Great. Okay. So, does systemic racism exist? So, I thought it would be important before we get into the actual debate to look at some a definition of what we're talking about. So, we have a couple of definitions I want to put forward first. So, one of them is from Webster's, which describes systemic discrimination as the oppression of a racial group to the advantage of another as perpetrated by inequality within interconnected systems such as political, economic, and social systems. We have another definition by Britannica, which describes it as institutional racism, the perpetuation of discrimination on the basis of race by political, economic, or legal institutions and systems. So essentially what we're looking at is to determine whether or not systemic racism exists, what we have to do is look at the institutions that govern the country and look at whether or not within those institutions discrimination exists. So what I've decided to do is look at some of the key institutions that govern our society in the UK and then see whether or not there's any evidence of institutional racism within these institutions. But before I do that, I just want to put forward the fact that there has been studies in the UK specifically by governments that have looked at whether or not systemic racism or discrimination exists. And there's been findings that have come forward. So, for example, we had the race disparity audit by Theresa May a few years ago. They concluded, well, first of all, let me highlight how they came to their conclusion. What she asked them to do was to actually get all government departments were required to identify what data they had on UK public services that could be analyzed by ethnicity. So they wanted to have basically an audit of all government systems to check whether or not there was any race disparity.
Sorry to interrupt. I can't hear. Is he breaking up?
No, it's not breaking up. It's fine, it's fine, it's fine.
So you can count the timer again. It must be on mine then. Sorry, who's breaking up? So, but yeah, you can add time. Sorry.
He's not breaking up to me. Is he breaking up to you?
It was sounding like his line went a bit funny.
Okay.
I missed what you were saying from about 20 seconds ago when you after the race disparity audit when you said they were looking on ethnicity parts. If you could continue from there, and
That's right.
Octavio, if you can just add time.
Yeah, no worries. That's fine. All right, thanks for that, Damon.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, bro. Sorry.
So the key findings, and I'm quoting the key findings from this report. So there are disparities between ethnic groups in all areas of life affected by public organizations. Some are more pronounced than others, or have a greater impact on people's life chances and quality of life. So essentially, this report did highlight that within institutions in this country, racial disparity and discrimination exists. But what we need to do is break down some of these institutions to see which institutions have been highlighted where there's evidence of discrimination. So I'm going to start with the criminal justice system. The McPherson report a few years ago highlighted that within the police force, racism was systemic. This was after the police's investigation into Stephen Lawrence. It concluded that there was institutional racism and highlighted racism at both individual and institutional levels. These findings were further evidenced by the Louise Casey report in 2021 after the murder of Sarah Everard, to the point where you actually had the leader of Britain's police chiefs organization. This was the leader. He came forward to say that the policing at that time was institutionally racist, and he called for a fundamental redesign of national policies and practices to eliminate discrimination. Let's look at some of the stats that they used that came to determine whether or not the police force was racist. For example, they spoke about stop and search figures. Now, we all know that stop and search within inner cities has always been disproportionately geared towards young black men specifically. But the argument has always been that, hey, that's because, within inner cities, you're going to get a high population of young black boys in deprived areas that are more likely to engage in criminal behavior. What's more alarming is that within rural areas, so these are areas outside of the UK, where there's hardly any black people per capita compared to whites, the incidence of stop and search increase to 17.5 times more than that of white people. So if you have a situation where there's less black people and more white people, and stop and search increases, that's even more evidence of racism being instigated within the UK police force, the police system. This again is further highlighted in the criminal justice system when it comes to sentences. There's evidence here from the Crown Prosecution Service itself that has highlighted that comparable offences between white British defendants and black district defendants always seem to are much more likely for black descendants, 10 percentage points between the two actually, which highlight that black defendants are much more likely to receive harsher sentences for the same crimes. So I'll continue as we go forward to look at some of the other institutions that govern our country and highlight whether or not there's evidence of racism within them. But for now, I'll cease my time and I'll let Damon continue.
Are you sure? Yeah, you've got a minute left. It's up to you. So
I have 1 minute left.
Yeah, you have 1 minute left. Yeah.
Well, I could go quickly to talk about education. So within the education system, again, there's been studies that have shown that within the Black Caribbean student population, they are 3 times more likely to be excluded than whites for very similar instances within the school system. This was highlighted by the Guardian newspaper, who went and canvassed data from local authorities, which highlighted that Caribbean children are as high as 6 times more likely to be excluded than their white counterparts. So again, that shows that within a system that is governed by an independent body and dependent bodies, they are both concluded. So these are studies that are within the educational system and outside of it, they have both concluded that there's existence of institutional or systemic racism within the educational system. I would then go on to discuss healthcare, but I think I'm not going to have enough time to do that, so I'm going to use my time now.
Thank you for that, John Michel. I just want to give a quick shout out to Aspra. He's asking, is it ethnicity or just color and phenotype? What would you guys say?
What do you mean?
Is racism defined just by skin color or ethnicity as well? And
yeah.
I've seen people extend it to ethnicity. I think that logically that would make sense. I think that if we're going by the traditional definition of racism and explaining why racism is bad because of the prejudice behind it, I think that you would have to simply limit it to skin color.
Yeah. Okay.
Both are equally stupid, but
All right. Damon. We're gonna start your time now. Shouts to you, Aspra. But yeah. Anytime you're ready, Damon, and I'll start.
yeah. Can I just ask? Can you give me a countdown when we hit like 5 minutes and 3 and 2 and 1, just so that I can keep track because
Absolutely.
I can't really see anything
Absolutely.
on my phone.
Absolutely.
So okay, so I just like to start off by saying this all basically started for a different reason. I accept what we're calling this discussion, but it stemmed from the question about Candace Owens raising an issue saying that she believes colonialism was a net positive for Africa. And then it stemmed from that onto her being accused of being racist for saying that. That originally is what gave rise to this discussion. JM felt that she was racist for saying that. And I wasn't arguing the actual statement that she made. I was simply arguing that she is not racist for saying that. We then touched on to other things, and I'm using my time to explain this because I think it feeds into the point I'm trying to make, and this is part of my opening, where other people got involved, and we discussed Myron's take on commenting on a relationship not lasting because of apparently black dudes banging your girl, and this fascination of why was he highlighting that. And I wanted to ask JM, which I'll come to in the cross-examination, what does he deem is necessary to claim that a comment is racist? Is it intent of the person saying it? Is it the experience of the person hearing it? Is it both, or is it neither? I still didn't get an adequate answer from that. That's something that we need to examine. And then it went on to DEI, equity, diversity, equity, inclusion, and ESG measures, saying this is evil. And when it comes full circle, I think this is all actually tied together, explaining why DEI is evil, Marxist policies being brought in, fascist policies being used to enforce rules. And somebody brought up the idea of someone being an incel and a racist and how they're connected with some cop from San Francisco. Is this systemic racism? Does systemic racism exist? So as part of my opening statement, I also want to say that I think the biggest reason why this led to accusations of people looking at everything through a lens of race, blaming all the problems on things like racism or incels or red pill culture or whatever, trying to find a boogeyman to blame everything on. I think that a big problem here, which is what I was trying to resolve with our discussions, is that, and I've heard it now, unfortunately, in the opening statement that JM made, you're conflating things that are not the same thing. Systemic racism is bullshit. That was my statement. It isn't real because the phrase itself is nonsensical. It was invented to perpetrate a lie, sorry. You're conflating, and you've done so in your opening statement, and it's a mistake that even people who are claiming to be authorities on it are making. In the studies that you've cited, you exposed this. Systemic racism is not institutional racism. They are two entirely different things. Institutional racism can be proven because it relies on policies, practices, laws, things that are actually established that we can say, this is racist. This was a rule that was specifically made to keep power away from certain groups of people and keep it in the hands of other groups of people. So if you look at Jim Crow laws in America, that's institutional racism. That's racism within the laws of America, within the justice system of America.
Sorry, Damon, 3 minutes left, yeah?
Thank you. So if you look at other things, other policies or practices. If you have a piece of paper, a document that you can provide that shows that within our legal structure, if a crime was committed by a black person, you're going to tag on 3 months, or you're going to increase some punishment some other way. If you're going to have a rule that says we will only take a certain amount of black candidates into this job, or only a certain amount of black candidates will be allowed to come into this university, that is institutional racism. Systemic racism is not the same thing. Systemic racism is an amorphous term. It doesn't mean anything. It completely obfuscates the truth of what we're discussing here. Because what happened was political parties relied on the idea that institutions are racist, and they came up with proof saying, look at things like redlining in America, black people not being given loans. This is institutional racism. And then guess what happened? As a society, we came together decades ago. Most of this shit was wiped out in the 60s. We obliterated all of it. We put laws of equality in, saying there's going to be no more of these racist laws, eliminated it. And then all of a sudden, these people that try to rule by fear, that want to win the votes of minorities, that want to keep everybody scared and afraid, had to think up, what are we going to replace this with? Because we've destroyed this monster. Now what are we going to do? So to revive it, they called it something else. Systemic racism. What's that? Well, it's basically racism that exists within certain systems. Okay, how are you going to prove it? Well, we can't prove it. Well, how do we know it exists then? Where's the laws? Where are the policies? Well, they don't exist. But certain racist people are in power within these institutions, and they're doing these things.
1 minute
Can't
left.
prove it we can't prove it if we don't know that it exists, if you don't have evidence. So whenever you're coming up with these things to say that there's a race disparity audit, which said that some people are higher impacted than others, and there's in the police force, you yourself said systemic racism one time, institutional racism another time, and said that it's both. So you can't prove that something exists when you changed the name and said, well, it doesn't require any proof. Systemic racism doesn't exist because there is no way to prove it exists. You're fighting a ghost. You're trying to say that a ghost exists within this system. There might be people in power that are making these judgment calls for all manner of reasons. And unless you have the proof to show that there is a law to say that this is what's going on, you can't say that it's racist.
5 seconds.
That's
Okay.
it.
Sorry. Yep. And time is up. Thanks for that, Damon. And now we are going to enter into cross-examination. I'm going to set the time. It's going to be 10 minutes. John Michel, whenever you're ready. Let's keep the answers under 1 minute, please. And John Michel, whenever you're ready, that's 10 minutes for you, and then 10 minutes for Damon, and then we'll enter into open discourse. So yes, let's keep the answers nice, short, and concise. Go ahead, John Michel.
So initially, I think it's important to first make it clear that there was no conflating of terms here. Institutional racism is a sign of systemic racism. To repeat, institutional racism is a sign or evidence of systemic racism. To prove systemic racism exists, you have to look at the institutions that govern society and check within those institutions to see whether or not there is evidence of institutional racism. If within all those bodies there's signs of it, that then is a proof which can be put forward to show that a society has an issue with systemic racism. So I don't think Damon actually understands the terms and phrases he's using, or is ignorant of them. So I'm here to help. So let's get that out of the way first of all. When it comes to evidence of said discrimination, he said that there isn't a law. So because there isn't a law that says, hey, if a black person commits a crime and a white person commits a crime, let's give the black person more time. There's very rarely in society has there ever been a law that has stated that. However, in practice, and this is the important word, in practice, there is evidence, data, which proves that in this country, and this is a data that's put forward by the CPS. So there's no one that would know more. There's no body that would know more about disparities or discrepancies between sentencing than the CPS. And they have put forward the fact that there is clear discrepancies with sentences between black and white when it comes to very similar or the same crimes. So the idea that there would be any type of law, evidence of a law that would say, hey, give a black person more time than a white person, is a preposterous and ludicrous inclusion into a debate, because that would has hardly ever happened. Maybe in the early days of slavery, perhaps, but in this country specifically, there's never been a law that has put forward such a position that a black person should be jailed more for the same crime. So we're talking about practices here. We're not talking about law. We're talking about discriminatory practices, and it's discriminatory practices that are what are used to make the claim or to highlight evidence of the discrimination, and that's where you get the data from, highlighting practices, not highlighting law.
So, John Michel, do you have a question for Damon? In regards to what you've heard from what he has said.
To be honest, I mean, yeah. My first question is, why hasn't he prepared for this debate? This debate is about systemic racism. It's not about chats in WhatsApp groups. I came prepared to discuss systemic racism, not about frivolous conversation.
You would have understood the difference between the two if you came prepared.
So if we can stick to the topic, that would be great.
Yeah, go ahead, Damon.
If you came prepared, you would have understood the difference between the two. You're saying that you're not conflating the two, but that's all you've ever been doing.
That's your opinion.
No, that's a fact.
No, it
institutional racism is that if you're looking at institutional racism, it's discriminating on groups of people if it's either, like we said earlier, skin color or ethnicity or anything like that. But it's done within the systems, but relying on the structures. And those structures can be the policies, they can be the laws, but there's something tangible. They are a hard and fast rule. So there exists evidence. If we're discussing institutional racism, there exists evidence. Now,
that means you don't know. That means you don't know.
I'm answering the question. The example that you gave for systemic racism is you conflated it with that. Now, systemic racism doesn't need to have proof. It has what you've done. All we need to prove systemic racism is what you did. Oh, look, this guy is a black guy. He got sentenced more than what the white guy did. And this judge has done this. Now, this is why it's a bullshit term, because all systemic racism is racism, but you can find evidence of it within these institutions that you like to use the word for, but systems, like, for example, a police force. This police officer is racist. Nobody denies that happens. Yes, police officers can be racist. They can stop more black people than white people. Yes, a judge might give a harsher sentence to a black guy because a judge might be racist. But guess what? There's not a policy that's prescribing that. And for you to say that that's never happened in this country, wow, amazing. You're saying that England isn't racist. I never thought I'd hear that from you.
Okay, Damon,
okay, go ahead.
Come back. John Michel, go ahead.
Yeah. So again, clear lack of understanding.
We'll try to understand harder.
So first of all, I'll say it again. Institutional racism is a sign of systemic discrimination. When we talk about systemic discrimination in a society, to determine that, you have to check within the institutions that govern such society to check to see whether there's institutional racism therein. That's where you don't seem to understand the connection between the two terms. And so that's why
you can
hold
mix
on.
the terms up.
Hold on a
You are.
second. That's why you keep using the word conflation, because you don't seem to understand. Now, in
No,
terms of
it's
the example that you gave, it would be ridiculous to say that because one black person is sentenced for the same crime more than a white person, that would be a sign of institutional racism. No one has put forward that. I made it clear that a study was shown. If you understand how studies work, they would take a cross. It would have been based on a body of cases, and a conclusion would have been made. And as I said, this was a study
Yeah, I'll
curated.
come to that.
Oh,
I'll
let
come
me
to that when
finish.
I cross-examine you.
This was a study put forward by the CPS. These are people that have every single judgment that happens at their disposal. So obviously they weren't looking at one case. They looked at a multitude of cases and found a disparity. And they qualified it by saying, literally, they qualified it with a statistic. For example, if you look at with stop and search, they can qualify it by giving you a statistic of 17.5 times more likely. Okay, when it comes to sentencings, they've qualified it by saying that there's a 10% points a disparity between the sentencing. So obviously we're not talking about individual cases here. We're talking about a body of cases that have been analyzed, and a disparity was evident based on race. This is a sign of discrimination, which is a sign of institutional racism.
Okay, guys, we have a minute and 20 seconds left. Do you have a question for Damon before he goes into his cross-examination? John Michel.
To be honest, no.
No? Okay. No worries. Damon, we can start your cross-examination now. Hold on a second for me. Yeah, when you're ready.
Okay, so yeah, so again, if there is if there is a clear difference in the way JM is trying to make out, then we wouldn't see the terminology being used the way we've seen it in society. There was a very clear understanding of what institutional racism was up until a short while ago, historically. And institutional racism did rely on the fact that you need to be able to prove for somebody to win a case, for example, if you want to look at all of the times people have sued institutions and said, we're going to prove that there's institutional racism going on, it always relied, and you had the burden of proof that you had to demonstrate that there was in fact a policy or practice which was recognized and understood to exist to hamper the advancement of certain people and to keep other people as the gatekeepers, let's say, within those institutions. So that's what institutional racism is. You can prove it. There exists a policy, there exists a law or something that's going to enforce that. This is why we have had, and the reason why we know that this is what institutional racism is because this is why we had such things as equality laws coming in, because they had to abolish those systems that existed. That was proving that institutional racism was in fact alive and well, and it was happening. Like I said, in America, this was redlining. That was abolished in, I think, 1968, where you had certain practices where banks wouldn't be lending to black families. That was abolished. Jim Crow laws abolished. Then, when all of that was abolished, people wanted to carry on keeping the myth alive. So they started saying, we're going to call it systemic racism. What's systemic racism? Certain people in certain places and workforces and positions of power are racist. That's just racism. That's just racism. If you can't show me that there is a policy or a practice that exists that shows that there is a discrimination that is literally enabled to be happening there, it doesn't mean anything different to racism. The whole point of institutional racism was that there was an enabling force via these policies that existed that showed that the system was rigged, the institution was rigged. If you can't prove that, I'm sorry, you're the one who doesn't understand this, JM, because it exists for a reason to hold certain people back. When the reason is gone, when the system there of abuse exists has been removed and it doesn't exist anymore, you only have people who are racist. And oh, I work in a system, it's a fair system, but I'm racist, so I'm going to be the one that's going to be skewing certain things. That's just racism. That's just racism, nothing more. So calling it systemic racism is trying to turn it into this big boogeyman that we want to scare people with. That's all it is. You're the one who doesn't seem to understand this.
Damon,
Everyone else who's discussed it does.
do you have a question for John Michel?
I've got a question actually. Are you aware that the studies that you brought up, such as people being sentenced harsher, this was a study that actually came up after an FBI study that came out in America to try and investigate the same thing, where they were saying that Black people were being sentenced harsher, specifically for things like certain crimes, like drug crimes, that they were being given harsher sentences. And it was a deliberately flawed investigation that wanted to prove that racism existed with regards to sentencing. And the exact same study was done by the Crown Prosecution Service, the one that you mentioned, with the same results, that in fact did find, yes, Black people are being sentenced harsher. But both times the investigation ignored the fact, and it was exposed, if you look at the FBI study and if you look at the Crown Prosecution study, people who debunked it, was that it didn't take into account, purposely did not take into account, the other charges that people were being booked for as well. So, for example, in America, the reason why Black people seem to be sentenced harsher than white people is because there's secondary counts and third counts that get added onto that charge. But when it gets filed, it only gets filed under the primary count. So you can say, oh, this guy carried a baggie and it had cocaine in it. This guy had a baggie, had cocaine in it as well. The Black guy was sentenced harsher than the white guy. Yes, because he was doing other things like violently assaulting officers, resisting arrest, and other things. So those second and third counts deliberately were omitted from the study. And after America did it, our Crown Prosecution Service did the same thing as well, because they wanted people to think that this was an actual fact, so that they could then say, we're going to formulate a board that's going to investigate this. This is going to cost a lot of taxpayer money. We can form all these regulatory boards. This same thing can be applied to other systems that you mentioned as well. I'm happy to talk about it. But do you know about that, but you deliberately ignored it because you wanted to back up this idea or not?
Let me answer. So
Yeah,
first
go
of
ahead.
all, it's a shame that you brought a very bad faith lie into our debate right now. What you said just is complete and absolute nonsense. The study by the CPS had absolutely nothing to do with any FBI study. The reason why the CPS investigated it was down to, as I mentioned earlier on, the race and disparity audit that Theresa May asked government leads to look into. So it's a shame that you decided to bring in a non-story, a lie, into this debate to try to prove a point that doesn't exist. And I'm very disappointed in you for doing that. Just to clarify, the CPS study has absolutely nothing to do with any FBI study. Second of all, there has been no debunking of the CPS in the way that Damon has highlighted. That's also a lie. So this to get gets that out of the way completely. And then in future, Damon, if you're going to actually try to debunk any of my studies, at least try and be factual and stop making things up on the spot, because it really makes you look bad. Okay? So please don't do that again.
Go ahead, Damon.
You can look it up. You can look it up.
I've got the study. I've got it right here.
I never said.
My research. There's nothing.
Excuse me,
John.
With an FBA study. Absolutely nothing to do with
Sorry,
an
John. It's
FBI study.
cross-examination. Go ahead, Damon.
I'm talking about. I never said that I never said that the British study had anything to do with the FBI. I said that the FBI study. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I didn't say it had anything to do with the FBI. Are you going to let me talk? Are you going to let me talk, or are you going to carry on blabbering?
I'm supposed to be impartial. Come on, guys. Let's do it.
I never said that the Crown Prosecution.
We have 2.5 minutes left. Go ahead.
Okay, I never said the Crown Prosecution study had anything to do with the FBI. I said that the FBI did a study themselves with regards to racial disparity in federal sentences.
Okay.
And that study, which was done, I think it was in 2014, was investigating this. It was debunked.
Okay, what does that have to do with
because,
the CPS study?
excuse me, can you let me finish? It was debunked by people saying that it didn't take into account additional charges that were it only looked at the main filing charge for the arrest. It ignored the secondary and the third or any other additional charges. When our government saw how effective that was in bringing a lack of faith into the judicial system, then they decided to do the exact same study in the exact same biased way in this country. And they came with the same results. Yeah, of course. Look, certain people are targeted harsher. So I never said the FBI had anything to do with it. I said our government copied what the FBI did.
Okay, so can I come in now?
As long as you actually understood everything.
Okay, so this goes to show again the bad faith arguments that Damon is coming with. Okay, once again, the idea that the government, Theresa May, commissioned a study that asks all government departments to look at racism within their specific fields had anything to do with an FBI study that happened 3 years earlier is absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The CPS study, once again, has absolutely nothing to do with the study that Damon keeps referring to, done by the FBI.
It's the exact same study. What's wrong with you?
Absolutely doesn't matter if it's the same study. It has
it's got nothing to do with it. It's just exactly the same.
So if they did a study in India that is related to the study over here, you're making a ridiculous argument. It has nothing to do with it. Okay, and the findings are not the same. The findings have nothing to do with what you're talking about. The findings have nothing to do with what you're talking about. You've literally just made up something on the spot to counter one of my studies, and it hasn't worked. You don't even know the dates of when the CPS study was done. You don't know the dates of it.
I don't know.
You said it was done before. You don't know if it was the CPS study done before or after.
Okay, guys, listen. Everyone, stop. We're about to enter into open discourse. Now, if we can't, let's keep it short and concise. Let's keep it respectful, guys. And if we can't do that, then we're gonna have to do it 2 minutes each. That would be the best way, because I don't want everyone talking over each other. Then it becomes unproductive and it doesn't help anyone. So, guys, open discourse. Go ahead, guys. But if it gets too much, then we're gonna have to have 2 minutes each. Go ahead, people.
So, what I wanted to do is actually, in conclusion, for my initial opening statement, was actually to look at. So I mentioned before that we've had numerous studies that have government studies that have highlighted in this institutional discrimination within our institutions.
Systemic. You're talking about systemic. That's what the discussion is about. Stop conflating the two.
Let me finish.
Stop conflating the two.
Let me finish talking.
Stop conflating the two.
If you let me finish,
guys, don't talk over each other.
Finish my sentence.
Pointless to talk over each other. Go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
Okay, as I was saying, that have highlighted the institutional racism within our industries. When you have a totality of these findings, that's when you can make an assumption as to whether or not systemic racism exists within a society. Systemic racism, once again, is evidence of institutional racism. You look at all the institutions that govern society. If you find discrimination and prejudice within all those institutions, that then constitutes as systemic racism or systemic discrimination. That's what systemic racism is. It's a conclusion based on institutional racism. That's what it is. And what I want to do now is just in closing is highlight something that was, because as I said before, there's been studies in this country that have highlighted that systemic racism exists. We also had the study in 2023 from the UN. So we actually had a working group come over, visited London, Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol. This is what their conclusion found. Racism in the United Kingdom is structural, institutional, and systemic. Independent UN human rights experts said on Friday, warning that people of African descent in this country continue to encounter discrimination and erosion of their fundamental rights. So this was a study done by a worldwide body that concluded that in this country, structural, institutional, and systemic racism exists.
Go ahead, Damon.
Can I talk? Yeah. Okay. So,
Sorry,
Damon,
Damon. Guys,
tell me.
this is open discourse. All right, we got 50 minutes. Go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead.
right. Okay. Sorry. And I was just listening to this because I thought you were going to call 2 minutes.
No.
Right.
So
Okay. Well,
we can listen, guys. We can do it 2 minutes each. Or
no,
we
no,
can
no, 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 no.
discourse.
I'm happy to talk as long as
Well,
I actually
I
get
kind of gave a
answers.
conclusion there. So Damon, you can do like a 2-minute conclusion like what I just did there, and then we can have a discussion after.
Sure. Okay. The fact is that let's assume, because I don't think that you're willing to actually understand the true definition of it. Let's assume that your definition stands. This amorphous term, where you don't need any actual proof. You can look at certain.
The proof is institutional race discrimination.
Okay, let me then let's have a little back and forth then, but please be decent enough to at least give me short answers that are concise. So if I was to ask you, that because you said systemic racism is evidence of institutional racism, okay, so I'm assuming that you're saying that if we can see that institutional racism is existing, then that means that it proves that systemic racism is real. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. What is your evidence for institutional racism?
I've given various examples. I've shown examples within the criminal justice system. I've shown examples within the educational system.
Now, here's my point. Thank you. No, I understand.
I was going to go on to show examples.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that that's what you were doing. What you were doing there, right? My point is that what you're doing there is not institutional racism. What you're doing there is you're showing. Hang on, let me finish.
By the way, this is not my definition. By the way, I'm literally highlighting reports.
Yes, and as I said,
from the actual institutions themselves. Let me read it. Let me read again what the.
No. I don't need you to read it again
because, like I said, because you're saying that I'm saying it.
Anyone who's been listening to us has heard it. Let me just tell you what I'm trying to say. Right. Is that, like I said in my opening, many people who are trying to perpetuate this myth exist in positions of power, and they have been themselves conflating systemic and institutional racism. Now you're saying your argument is to prove that systemic racism is real. We can prove it by showing that institutional racism exists.
Damon, racism. Before you go on, you have to analyze what you just said there. You literally put forward a conspiracy theory. You said that people of positions of power are deliberately conflating what discrimination and racism is. That's what you're.
Yes. What systemic and institutional racism are.
You do understand that what you're putting forward is literally a conspiracy theory. You do.
Okay, well, let me tell you why the conspiracy theory clearly exists. Because if you look at the news,
you are admitting it's a conspiracy theory.
No. I'm saying that I'm admitting that you're saying. Hang on, stop interrupting me. I said that I'm admitting that you're saying that it's a conspiracy theory, and I'm saying, let me show you why it's real. No, because like I said, institutional racism needs to have tangible proof. Now, you can't say to me the police stop and searches discriminately target black kids more than white kids. That's proof of institutional racism. No, it isn't. If you're going to prove institutional racism to me, you need to tell me or show me that there is an active policy of some kind, a directive that exists that's making police target more black kids than white kids.
Right.
Now, I can easily, you can say, oh, but look at how many black kids are being stopped. Now look at how many white kids are being stopped. That happens in my neighborhood. There's an equal amount of white kids and black kids in my neighborhood. And I know for a fact that black kids get stopped more than white kids do. Now, I can say, let me play one side. This means that the police are racist in my area. Now, the overwhelming majority of the police in my area are Asian and black, not white. But let's assume that for some reason they hate black kids more than they hate white kids. That's entirely a possibility. I concede that. I can agree that it's possible that they're racist. I can also say that whenever I see white kids, I see who they are, I see what they're doing. Whenever I see black kids in my neighborhood, they're wearing balaclavas, hoodies, covering their face, and they always stand together. And whenever you see a police officer, they shout out to each other, 5-0, and they look shifty as fuck and they run
Okay,
away.
so what I'm going to do now is I'm
Now,
going to
hang
interrupt
on,
you there
wait a
because
second.
you're not really making any points.
No.
And I want to make it clear because I let you
Stop
speak for
cutting me
longer.
off because I'm trying to.
No, because
trying
you
to
have a
ask you
tendency.
something.
Come on,
You have
come
a
on, guys, come on,
tendency
guys.
to
Damon, can you finish? Hold on, John.
yeah,
Sean.
there's a tendency
Damon,
to waffle here.
can you
I
just
want
stop?
to come back in.
Can you just make
And I want to.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I'd like to. Yeah, thanks. So if I can finish, right? So when I look at it on one side, I can look at that as evidence of racism, but all as that is evidence of racism within a police force. That there's nothing institutional about it because there's no policy dictating them to do that you've shown me so far. When I look at it from the other side, I can say that maybe there's a reason why they seem to be targeting black people more than white people. Now, what I want to ask you is because I can look at it both ways, what magical crystal ball do you have that can tell you that you know for a fact that all of the people working within these systems are only targeting or discriminating against one color versus the other color because of racism?
Great.
How do you know it's that and nothing else?
Let me answer.
Go ahead, Michel.
First of all, I made it very clear in my opening statement that it's very easy to put, as Damon's done, both sides of the argument when it comes to inner city policing. The actual more damning verdict is what happens in rural areas. In rural areas where there's hardly any black people are still more likely to be stopped. And that is actually much more clear evidence of discrimination and racism than within the inner cities.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And
I just told you. Did you not hear what I said in my point?
You didn't like me interrupting, so don't interrupt. So first of all, that is actually much more of a sign of discrimination than it is within the inner cities, especially when you look at after these stop and searches, the arrest rate is literally in the single digits. So once these black people are being stopped in rural areas, they're not being charged or cases are not going forward, which literally highlights the fact that they're being targeted literally for how they look. And again, this isn't me saying it. This is actually the conclusion that have been put forward by people that have studied this in depth. These are not my opinions.
Okay.
No, I let you speak. I let you speak. I haven't finished. Okay. And with regards to this idea that because he believes that there's people of positions that are somehow purposely lying to the public about institutional racism within their own institutions, there's no evidence of that, and there's actually no reasoning behind why they would do that. So, for example, when you have the leader of Britain's police chiefs organization coming forward as the most senior serving leader of the police force to say himself that policing is institutionally racist and calling for fundamental change within his own police force, okay? These are not my words. This is not me playing the victim. This is not me saying, having a chip on my shoulder. So it's
can I respond?
No, having a chip on my shoulder, as it were. This is literally someone within the police force who is privy. This is the important part. Who is privy to the data? Who has seen the data? Who has seen
the evidence? Profiteer massively from what he said.
Let me finish.
He said it's not true.
Let me finish. Who has seen the data? Who has seen the statistics? He has come forward. There's no benefit in him doing this outside of trying to elicit change within his own organization, which makes the most sense rather than some type of conspiracy theory and the fact that he's saying it for the sake of saying it.
Okay, my brain cells are dying. Can I please say something now?
He is saying it. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Damon.
Right. Okay, thank you. Right. Okay, so we'll come back to that last complete nonsense word salad in a second. But the first bit, what you were saying, I clearly explained to you how if I look at a group of black kids and a group of white kids, and I see the police targeting the black kids more than the white kids, there might be other reasons for it other than racism. Your response to that to try and say, oh, it gets disproven if we look at outer areas where there's much less black people than white people, the same thing could still stand. You can look at a population group where there's equal amounts of black kids and white kids, and the police target black kids more than white kids because of the way the black kids might be behaving. The fact that you skew the population group so much so that now all of a sudden 99.9% happen to be white and only 0.1% happen to be black. And now you're saying, but the black kids being targeted more than the white kids are. It could still be the same reason. It could still possibly be the same reason. There's a justification for it that could exist. You are simply assuming that it has to be racism. And when I accused you of doing that before, you said, no, I'm not. And now you're doing it, and your only answer happens to be, but the population groups are smaller and they're still being targeted more. Let's look at America for a second. You've got about 6 times more white people than you do black people in certain areas of America. And the black people get stopped more, right? And people have said they only form 12% of the population. Why are they getting stopped more? Well, it might have something to do because they commit 52% of all the violent crimes and murders. Explain to me why that happens. Please explain to me why is it that you can have 12% of the population committing 52% of violent crime? Because if we look at it that way, maybe we can better understand why there might be a reason that certain population groups, even if they're the minority, are targeted in higher numbers than other population groups. Because there's a reason for it, and maybe it isn't always racism. But
Right.
you want to
Well,
constantly claim.
let me
No,
respond to
I'm
that.
not finished.
Hold on,
I'm not
hold on, hold on.
finished. I'm not finished.
Guys, everyone stop. Listen, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do 2 minutes each. I'll let you finish, Damon, and then after that, 2 minutes for John Michel to respond, and then after that, you come back again. So we're gonna do 2 minutes each. All right. Whatever point you guys need to make, it will have to be 2 minutes each. All right. Go ahead, Damon.
Right. So that's the first thing I wanted to say was you keep wanting to put this into the whole of racism. It's only racism. That could be the only justification of it. So whether or not you use the term of systemic or whether or not you want to use the term institutional, because you don't understand either one of them, you've proved that, it's still the same thing. You can't assume, all you're doing is you're assuming. You're looking at the data and you're making it fit your narrative that racism must be the answer. And if we look at what you said later on, which is the most hilarious thing, oh, he's got no reason to want to try and say that there's institutional racism within the police force, and it isn't going to benefit him in any way. Please, these are people who have lots of aspirations beyond simply working for a police force or child protective services or any other kind of government position. They want to go higher. And this can be a political aspiration thing where he wants to say, I'm the one who exposed institutional racism within the police. And he can go higher off that. He can build a career off of that. And even financially, DEI and ESG, all of these incentives that came over, you form bodies that are going to investigate this nonsense myth that you created. And you profiteer from it. You hire people who get the fattest paychecks. So don't please tell me this nonsense if there's no incentive for it. That's the biggest load of garbage I've heard ever.
Okay, guys. Okay, because Damon had 3 minutes and 37. We're gonna keep it to 3 minutes. John Michel, you got 3 minutes to address whatever
Great.
Damon has said, and then we'll go on to Damon again. Go ahead.
If you notice what Damon keeps doing, he's personalizing my arguments. He's saying, you keep trying to say it's racism. You are fascinated with looking at data and saying it's racism. I want everyone to understand that all I've done is regurgitate reports that have come from the same people that are the same people within the same institution. Independent studies and dependent studies. That's all I've been doing. These are not my opinions. These are not my conclusions. These are conclusions that have come forward from studies that have been both within organizations and independent studies. So when I talk about disparities within policing, for example, or within stop and search, within sentencing, and I highlight the fact that there's been discrimination has been detected. That's not my conclusion. These are conclusions that were put forward by people that were studying it. Within the police force, we have the police themselves saying that there's an issue with institutional racism. Not just this police chief. Other police commissioners have come forward and admitted that there's a problem with institutional racism within the police force. These are not my conclusions. Within the sentencing, and the fact that sentencing highlights discrimination and bias practices between black and white defendants, and how that could be linked, how that is linked to racial practices. That's not my conclusion. I'm not saying it. This
John
is
Michel,
coming,
you have a minute and a half, and
yeah,
it's up to you whenever you want to stop. Okay.
fine, yeah. So this is not my conclusions. So the fact that they may keep saying that I want to see racism, it's not what I want to see. I'm literally showing you what they saw, what the people in these institutions, the independent bodies that studied these institutions and audited these institutions, that's what they found. These are not my conclusions. These are conclusions by people who have actually studied, looked at data and practices within these institutions, and they have come up with these conclusions, not me. Concluded.
Damon, yeah, you got 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I actually agree 100% with what JM just said there. He opened up by saying that this is what he regurgitated, and I think that's the perfect word for it, because I mean, I don't know why you use that word, but regurgitating just means parroting back facts without actually understanding or comprehending it, and
No,
that's
it doesn't
exactly
mean
what you
that.
did.
It actually doesn't.
Yes, it
mean
does.
that. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
No, it
Actually,
doesn't.
actually,
No, it doesn't.
do you know
No, it
what?
doesn't.
Excuse me, I've got 3 minutes. Let me just
Come on.
Google something
Yeah,
quickly.
Damon, go ahead. No.
So I've got 3 minutes. Okay, yeah. Unless you meant that you vomited, the actual definition is to repeat information without analyzing or comprehending it. So that's the definition of regurgitation. That's exactly what you did. So you clearly didn't understand or comprehend any of it. And I asked you that a few times. I've brought up several times, and you can put the blame on others. You can say this is other people's data, other people's analysis. I asked you several times, how do you know that it's racism? All as you can give me is stats that say that one side is being discriminated against. For them to be discriminated against, there has to be an actual reason which has this kind of underlying hate, underlying desire to want to target one particular group based on their race or ethnicity. And I'm suggesting, I'm actually stating for a fact that it's highly likely in this day and age of equality and how far forward we've moved as a society, that there could potentially be another reason for it other than racism. And you, and yes, I'm saying you, because of the data that you've cherry picked, the examples that you've looked at, and even not just you, but yes, indeed, also those studies, which I said these studies are actually skewed potentially for genuine reasons because people can profit, is just wanting to put it on racism, nothing else. And the reason why systemic racism is bullshit is, like I said before, you only jump to that conclusion. There's no actual facts. I can agree Jim Crow laws were institutionally racist because there's evidence that we can see that it targeted one group over another. Affirmative action is institutionally racist. Redlining was institutionally racist.
30 seconds
All of these
left.
things, yeah, all of these things show a clear policy or practice or rule or law that is going to discriminate against one over another based on skin color. That is what institutional racism is. If you want to conflate systemic racism with that, you need to show me the proof. All as you have is assumptions that the reason must be racism. I'm done.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, Jim Shaw.
We're moving around in circles. I'd like to open
once again, I think it's important for people to understand the data I'm putting forward is not my data. The question is, does systemic racism exist? For me to prove that systemic racism exists, I have to show that within these institutions that govern society, discrimination exists. So yeah, you could point at the word regurgitation. That's the word I'm using to literally try to highlight, to minimize how little bias I have with the information I'm putting forward. That's why I use the term to show how little bias I have with the information. This isn't me putting forward some chip on the shoulder comment suggesting everything is racism. What I'm doing is I'm showing that independent bodies, people have out within within their organizations, outside of the organizations, even people from worldwide bodies have come into this country, done analysis, statistics, data, looked at the cases within the criminal justice system, for example, looked at a body of cases, looked at policing, looked at the statistics with regard to policing, looked at statistics regarding arrests or stop and search and arrests. And they have concluded, using the data, analyzing the data, that discrimination exists. So yes, it is not me putting forward that conclusion. Because if I put forward that conclusion, Damon would be the first person to say, but this is just your opinion. That's why I stayed away from my opinion. He doesn't like the data that I'm putting forward because he doesn't like the fact that it disproves what he wants to put forward. But that's the only way I can approach the debate is by being as non-committal in terms of my own opinion as possible. I had to show empirical data. I had to show information that had been put out by independent bodies. And that's the only way I could have challenged the notion of systemic racism existing. I had to look at the institutions. I had to look at the institutions, how the institutions have been governed, how they've been analyzed, how people have come into the organizations specifically with the idea of finding out whether or not these institutions are racist.
30
None of
seconds
these,
left,
none of
Michel.
these bodies have been investigated with the sole purpose of saying, yes, the police force is racist. Yes, the criminal justice force is racist. That's why we're investigating. The question always was, are they racist? Is there discrimination? That's how anyone approaches an issue.
Okay.
And based on the information that they found, they came to the conclusion that racism existed.
Okay.
Okay,
That's
so
3 minutes. Damon, go ahead.
yeah, so I don't really I don't think
By
that
the way,
James realizing.
guys, we have 15 minutes left. After that, we're done.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead. The 3 minutes start now.
I don't really think JM. I think James basically starting to repeat himself now and going around in circles. And I don't think that he understands really what I'm trying to, or what he's trying to say, rather. I have no issue with the data he's showing. I have an issue with the conclusions he's drawing. Yes, as he likes to say, this isn't my data. This isn't me saying this. This is me saying, but you have picked that data and you have come to the conclusion that you believe systemic racism exists and that it's a problem from the conclusions you drew from that data. Yes, I can look and say that certain races are targeted more, discriminated against more, is a jump though. I'm not going to say they're discriminated against just because certain people are targeted more for stop and searches. You have to prove that racism was the reason why that happened. And the data supports, yes, that more black kids were stopped in stop and searches than white kids were, or that black people got harsher sentences. But when I said what the problems with that were, that you ignored certain other factors, people did this with redlining. They said, look at all of these families that were not given loans. And people recognized that's because there's a racist policy behind it. They eliminated those racist policies. And guess what happened? Black owned banks were still not willing to give loans to black people as much as to white businesses or white people. Why? Because the sad fact is that they weren't financially reliable. They had other issues that the study didn't count. Things like liability, things like their job opportunities or their employment status, things like their credit score. And for you to then say, well, that's because racism. No, it isn't because racism. It's because of valid reasons. I agree that the data you're showing, okay, maybe there's some validity to it, but the data you're showing is only showing me an outcome. that Black people are going to prison more, or that Black people are being stopped and searched more, the data does not show me that the reason is racism. And you haven't proven that. You can't prove that. Unless you bring me a policy or rule, which is what we used to understand was the metric for this, back when it was called institutional racism. And then, because all of these laws were abolished under the Equality Acts, and people still don't want to accept these outcomes, people don't want to accept these outcomes that potentially, because certain cultures aren't conducive to success, and certain people of certain ethnicities might adopt those cultures more than others do, you want to assume that it must be racism. You need the proof to show that the motivating factor is racism. You don't have it.
3 minutes are up. Yes, John Michel, your 3 minutes now. Go ahead.
So it's clear that Damon is either unable or unwilling to understand what racism actually is. That's one thing that I've kind of deemed from this conversation, that he doesn't seem to understand what evidence of racism would actually look like. That's why he keeps saying things like, I haven't proved it yet, or I can't see it. He can't see it. People that did these studies, that held these studies, the Theresa May and her people, Damon can't see it, but they saw it. The people that actually did the studies saw it. Damon can't see it. The people that actually within the institutions themselves, who studied their own procedures and behaviors and practices, they saw it. Damon can't see it. Who are we to believe? The people themselves that were involved in analyzing the data, collecting the data, that are on the ground, that have privy to all the practices, to the behavior of the people within the organization, to the outcomes. They have concluded that racism is an issue. Damon can't see it. He's either unable to see it or he's unwilling to see it. These issues that we're talking about are age old. Going way back, people have always highlighted that within this country there's an issue with institutional racism and systemic racism. These are not new issues. Going back to as I said, we had report after report from the police. We had the McPherson report. We had this report after the Stephen Avery case. This within 10 years gap. Both reports have highlighted issues with racism within the police force. The CPS has been investigated themselves, within themselves, and other bodies within the government have done it. Within 10 years, it's been highlighted that racism is the issue. These, again, are not my conclusions. These are conclusions from people that are within these bodies, government bodies, lawyers, judges. These are the people that have conducted these studies. These are not lay people. These are people that are of high status. People that understand how to conduct studies, that understand how to get research, that understand how to analyze data. And this is the important part. These are people from the dominant society. Okay, these are not people that have, like David would say that I am, someone with a chip on their shoulder, a black person that just wants to see racism everywhere. These aren't these people that are conducting these reports and coming with these conclusions.
John Michel, time's up. Guys, one more back and forth, 3 minutes each, and then we're done. And after that, final thoughts.
I thought didn't JM get the first go?
No. Yeah, he gets the first. You get the last. No, but you're gonna have 3 minutes each right now, and then after that, John Michel is gonna do his final thoughts, and then you have the last one, the last word. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead. For your 3 minutes.
So I've already pretty much established that JM doesn't really understand the words he's using, whether it's institutional or systemic racism, or whether it's even a regurgitation for that matter. But I actually did ask him I asked him what he thought racism was. I asked him what he thought it depended on. He refused again and again to answer. And I know that the reason why he wants to refuse that is because the moment he actually tells me what his definition of racism is, it's going to be able to expose weaknesses in his argument, because he does want to assume that everything is racist. I understand from what he said before and from the discussions that we had that he does believe in the pro-black movement, and I respect that. If you believe that, that's cool. You know, empowerment, this strength of character, independence, all of that, not being a victim. But at the same time, you want to embrace all the same ideologies that put you in the position of acting like an oppressed victim. So I kind of don't understand that part of your logic. And I'd like to just pause for a second to ask Octavio. Octavio, can you bring up in our chat that we had the last question that I asked?
The last question that you asked on
and
the
what
chat,
it was in reference to.
I can't remember. What is this? What is this in regards of? Which chat is it?
The solution chat.
Oh, bro, there's so many.
Can you just pull it out? It's the last thing I said. The last thing I asked in the chat.
The last thing you said. Hold on a second. The last thing was cool. Thanks. Okay, as long as I understand that you agree, that is the premise.
Yeah, what was
cool.
my question?
Do you believe what you stated in your message is what hate speech legislation actually intends 100%? This is me reading, you know. Yeah, it looks like you're having a conversation with John Michel, as far as I can see here.
So JM basically agreed that all of those things he said about hate speech was real. That's why hate speech is established. That's what hate speech means. The only person who could agree with that and with hate speech and limiting speech in such a way that can easily be weaponized is somebody who embraces 100% the victimhood mentality. But you keep saying that you're not a victim, but you want to restrict speech and you want to enforce all of these kind of things, which are going to put forward things like
30 seconds left.
ESG. Okay. Do you know what? No. Tell me what racism is. Tell me, does it depend on the action of the person saying it or the feelings of the person hearing it, both or neither? Give me your definition what it is, because I asked you several times, and I'll come back to the point that I made on my follow-up, on my final thought.
Yes, go ahead, John Michel.
First of all, Damon's lied yet again. He's lied throughout this debate. When Damon asked him what racism was, I answered immediately. I said it's a thought or act, specifically an act that undermines a person because of their ethnicity or race. Clearly, they defined it. I did it in the chat, and I'm doing it here. He knows I've done it because he responded to me when I defined it. In regards to hate speech, I'm not sure how me saying, and I'm going to read what I said, equates to me being a victim. So we had a conversation about what hate speech is. I said hate speech is to protect people from being exposed to discrimination. If we allow people to demean other people based solely on their race and ethnicity, this can lead to discrimination, which impacts the lives and aspirations of other human beings. So me literally highlighting how hate speech, bigoted speech, can impact a human being and how that in itself can lead to discriminatory practices, somehow that makes me a victim. So let me give you a real life example. So when in Nazi Germany, before the concentration camps, before the gas chambers, what did we have? We had hate speech. We had people that identified as Jews being demonized, being called rats, being called bloodsuckers of society. That was hate speech. After hate speech came the gallows, came the concentration camps, came the gassing. That was my point. That's why hate speech laws are in effect, because when people are allowed to be exposed to discriminatory language. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. When people are allowed to be exposed to discriminatory language, this can lead to discriminatory behavior. How highlighting these truths make me a victim is something I never understand. But what I've realized with Damon is that he's one of those people that when anyone has anything that's contrary to his view with regards to race, it doesn't matter if it's based on facts, data, just the fact that it's highlighted triggers him. He's one of those people that don't like racism to be triggered. He doesn't like racism to be spoken about because it triggers him. And I'm very wary of any person that doesn't like to talk about race or to talk about racism because it triggers them. I'll leave it there.
Okay. All right, John Michel, you've got your final thoughts. So I'll give you 4 minutes for your final thoughts and 4 minutes for Damon for his final thoughts. You started first, so Damon's going to finish. So yeah, go ahead, John Michel, your final thoughts.
So my final thoughts is as follows. So the question was about systemic racism. I've highlighted that for someone to determine whether or not systemic racism exists, you have to look at the systems within a country, the institutions within a country or a society, and determine whether or not discrimination and prejudice and racism exists within those institutions. If you then, through study, through research, find out that indeed racism and discrimination do exist within a multitude of institutions, or specifically to the ones that govern society, if you could establish that, then you can make the claim of systemic racism. So that's the first thing that I did with my opening statement and throughout this discussion. I highlighted that systemic institutional racism exists using research data studies put forward by people that were within the institution and their conclusions. For example, you had people at senior policemen that highlighted that racism exists within the police force. You had independent studies that came forward to highlight racism within the institutions. You had government studies. These are studies that looked at all the institutions that govern society. They have determined that there's an issue with institutional racism. Then you had a study put forward by the UN last year. They highlighted the fact that systemic racism exists. They actually used the words systemic and institutional racism. So they analyzed the fact that there was institutional racism, therefore there is systemic racism. So I've highlighted not only with independent studies, dependent studies, government studies, international studies have all highlighted that systemic racism indeed exists. So I've done my end of the debate in terms of proving that systemic racism exists. What we had to counter that was a man that came forward with spurious arguments, first suggesting that one of my reports was mirroring a report that came from a US study by the FBI that he couldn't even determine when happened, but said it came after, but doesn't know when the CBS study came out. Then he made the point of kept saying that I was the person that kept highlighting racism. It was me that was coming up with these conclusions. I was looking at data and determined that, hey, racism exists, when it was very clear that I was not doing that. I was literally highlighting the racism that was found evidence of. These were not my own conclusions. So the idea that I didn't understand what systemic racism means has been debunked. He is the one that didn't understand what it meant. He clearly, as I said, was unable or unwilling to understand what systemic racism is and what racism is.
Is that you done? Yep, great.
Yep.
And Damon, you've got 4 minutes for your final thoughts. Go ahead, bro.
All right. So the sad thing is that I've seen him put forward a lot of evidence, a lot of studies. That's great. It's not evidence of racism. It's evidence of certain people it's evidence of certain demographics of people not ending up with the same equal outcome. There's not the same amount of black people or white people according to the percentages of populations that are ending up in jail. There's not the same amounts of black people and white people according to population percentages that are getting equal access to healthcare or education or whatever, any of that kind of stuff. That doesn't mean that racism is the answer. It can be all manner of other factors. It can be education based, it can be financially based, it can be where you came from, where you started in life, all kinds of things, what your culture is, what your work ethic is, all these other kind of things. But to assume that it's racism, apparently, I don't know. JM has this crystal ball, he has this sixth sense that lets him know that racism is always the answer. And if that's what he believes, then that's fine. But the simple fact is, the rest of us who live in the real world understand that there is no fair society unless you're willing to let government play God. If you're willing to put all of your faith and all of your love and all of your trust in the government and give them this godlike power to enforce equity, not equality, but equity, then they will be able to pull all the strings to give you these equal outcomes, and it will 100% halt the progress of society. That is essentially Marxism, telling people you're being discriminated against, there's forces of racism at play, give us more power and we can enforce these equal outcomes. And this is why I said that he's embracing the victimhood narrative, because only a victim would think, I want big daddy government to help him, and I'm going to put that kind of power in their hands. Weak people buy into it. Mentally weak people buy into it. Institutional racism was eliminated. The government's eliminated it with equality acts. You can't prove that these laws exist. Yes, you can look at outcomes and say they're unequal. But if you honestly believe that you're going to get 100% equal outcomes across the board based on what your gender is, what your ethnicity is, what your skin color is, what your religion is. If you think that you're going to get 100% equal outcomes, you're living in a fairy tale. That's the height of ignorance. Everybody's different. People have different cultures, people have different drives, people have different motivations. And if you're going to put everything on racism when you think that the outcomes don't meet your standards, then that's the height of ignorance. Weak people buy into this, and the governments want more power. So when you're telling me that the CPS found out, the governments found out, the UN found out, they all said that there's this racism, why the hell do you think that is? What could possibly drive them? Because they're going to say this is a problem. They're going to say that this awful thing is existing, this systemic problem, and that they will take power to fix it. They want more power. They want their governmental reach to be deep into every single aspect of your life. And they can draw up all these kind of things, like you said, restrictions on speech, next will be restrictions on thought. We can fix the problem if we give ourselves this godlike power. That's a terrifying damn place to live.
Wow. Well done, gentlemen. I absolutely loved the debate. Great debate, great back and forth. I absolutely loved it. Very informational. I think anyone watching it and anyone who's going to watch it will love it. Absolutely loved it, guys. And thank you for that. Now, this concludes our debate. Great debate, by the way. And I've got 40 more minutes on the clock. I know some people wanted to join in. And
you can take questions from other people if we want to come in with questions.
Yeah, no. This is what I'm saying. We've got Jake Var already ready to come in. Hassan, where are you, Hassan? I sent you the link. I know you're listening to this debate, Hassan. So come in. We've got Jake. We've got 40 minutes here, guys. I want to keep it to 2 hours on the dot. But yeah, it's been absolutely amazing, guys. Yes, we've got Jake on the panel. Hopefully Hassan will join us soon. And yes, guys, let's have a discussion about it.
Okay. Can I be heard here?
Yes, you can be heard.
I can be heard. Awesome. Okay, so real quick, guys. I have a question for Jay. I'm actually going to steal Jam's argument here. So you talk about systematic racism. So my question is that there was cases over there in Chicago, here in the United States, where Walmart closed down 4 stores in Chicago in areas where it was predominantly black communities. And of course, there's a bunch of articles written saying this is racism, systematic racism, as you would like to say. Let me ask you this. Is that a case of systematic racism? Did Walmart pull out their stores, close down these stores in these areas? Did you leave?
Hold on. Yeah, he's back on again. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jake.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, again, is this a form of systematic racism, or is this a form basically of what? Is that an example of systematic racism when Walmart pulls out their stores from these areas?
I would say.
I'm asking JM. I'm asking JM.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So, Jake, I don't know why they would pull their stores out.
Mm-hmm.
On face value, from what I'm hearing, just on literally the fact that a shop decides to remove its stores from a location.
Mm-hmm.
From what you said, I can't see how that could be linked to any kind of institutional racism. No, I can't see it. From what you said, no,
Mm-hmm.
I can't see that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, fair enough. Okay. So here's another example. Unless I'm allowed to ask another question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So here's another example. For example, here in the United States, I don't know about the UK, but here in the United States, usually schools that are predominantly black get less funding from the state than predominantly white schools. Is that also an example of systematic racism?
I'll be honest with you, Jake. I don't like speaking on issues where I don't know the full history or knowledge of.
Okay,
I'm not that familiar with American school system and how they're funded.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to make statements.
Okay, over there in the UK, do you see example where
no,
none of that?
What you would see, because we're very multicultural over there, you don't really have like a predominantly all black. You get deprived areas where the school may be underfunded.
Mm-hmm. But why is that though? Is it because of skin color? Is it systematic racism? Like
why is that? The boroughs are poor. The local authorities that govern those schools are underfunded.
Okay,
that's why is that? Is it because of skin color?
No, because there's in some of these boroughs. For example, you've got boroughs up in east of London, who are mostly white inhabitants. They have very poor schools, and so
there's examples of even white schools that are extremely underfunded.
Well, it's not white schools. This is what I'm saying. We don't put schools into color.
Well, predominantly white.
We have local authorities that govern, that are in charge of the funding of their schools within their district. If they are underfunded, which most of our boroughs are, the school systems are not very good, generally speaking, in this country, because this country doesn't fund education as it should do. And so that's not necessarily a race issue. If you're going to talk about racism within the education system, we'd have to look at within the individual schools and see if there's any practices. For example, I highlighted the exclusion rates, for example, of black kids compared to white kids, and how they're disproportionately higher. That could be seen as more of an example of racism than actual poor school funding.
Oh, JM, actually, I'm going to back you up here. You said systematic racism, right?
Yeah.
So systematic means within the system, right? But there's racism within the system. I'll actually steel man you right now. So here's an example of systematic racism. Okay. How about affirmative action? So giving examples here, for example, colleges, universities have to accept a certain amount of number of Black people, regardless of their SAT scores or their accomplishments in high school. They have to accept a certain amount of Black people. The ones that are affected are actually white people and Asian people.
Can I just steal
So-
your argument there, Jake?
Go for
That's
it.
actually institutional racism, because there is a directive that you can point to that
Yes.
shows
Yes.
that that's going to be done. So
So-
that motivating factor there is actually a policy. It's
Yeah,
not
it's an
somebody
actual
working
policy.
in the system who's a racist,
Yeah.
who wants to positively discriminate. It's a policy and a practice.
Yeah. So again, going back to you, JM,
So
wouldn't
I'm
that be an
against,
example of systematic racism that racism actually benefits Black people?
so I'm against it. I'm against, even though I'm against affirmative action, what I won't do is just talk about it without understanding the concept, the contextual history behind why it exists.
But
So
isn't
why-
that
so why-
well? The reason why it
it's
exists
important-
is to boost up minority groups.
Well, no, that's not. Well, okay. So why? We always see. My thing is, whenever you're faced with an issue like this, we have to keep asking ourselves why. And when you
Mhm.
keep coming up, so for example, you said why. Your answer was to boost minority groups. So well, why do minority groups need to be boosted?
Reparations.
Or because
Reparations.
or perhaps because there was a time when there was when discrimination was so overt that Black people were marginalized when it came to the educational system. So this is what I'm saying. So whenever you look at affirmative action, even though I don't actually agree with it, I believe much more in merit, and I don't like the idea. I don't like the culture that it can create. So I'm against it. However, I will acknowledge that the basis for affirmative action was based on a legacy of discrimination. And I don't think there's anyone here that would argue against that. If you know the history of America, you understand why there was a legacy of discrimination that led to affirmative action. But if you just agree with it or not, I don't think we should ignore the legacy behind why it exists.
No,
Okay,
nobody
guys,
is.
guys, hold
Guys,
on, hold on.
real quick. I'm
Hold
going
on,
to shut up
hold on.
after this. I swear, I'm going to shut up after this. So, JM, you're stating affirmative action because you don't know the history, therefore you can't tell
do
me
know the
if that's
history.
systematic. Okay, so is it systematic racism?
Is what systematic racism?
Affirmative action.
No, it's not systematic racism.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, you can move on.
All right,
It's institutional racism.
Hassan wants
Well, let me explain why, because maybe Jake doesn't understand why I'm saying
No,
that.
you
No, but-
went on about it. That's
No,
fine.
I'm going to explain to you why it isn't, because obviously it's important that we're clear about why I'm
Because of
saying
the powers that be. Gotcha.
no, that's not the reason why. Because if you understand what systemic racism is, okay, the systemic racism is literally when you have evidence of a number of institutions practicing racism. Okay?
Every single university and job
discriminatory
and employer in America.
discriminatory practices across a host of different institutions. That is evidence of systemic racism. Because we talk
Every
about
single university and college in America and every single employer has to favor them. So these are the hiring practices. They're given incentives to disproportionately favor pretty much every single race over whites. I think Asians are the most discriminated against by the college affirmative action.
When
if
it
I'm
comes to
correct,
yes,
Jake.
correct. It is Asian people. Yes.
Yeah, so it's like
Second, white
Asian
people.
people are better at maths, so we're gonna make them have to score higher than their white counterparts and black counterparts.
Correct.
So let me ask you
And-
this: do you believe it's systemic racism, Jake?
Yeah, well, based off of the system and racism, which is discriminated against because of the skin color, technically that would be systemic racism. That's the only example I can think of.
Okay,
But
that's
however,
institutional.
that's a policy that literally helps Black people get into these universities. So
Oh, you
that's
think it's
systemic
wrong, right?
racism that actually is beneficial to Black
so
people.
you think
Okay,
it's wrong, right?
hold on,
You
John
think it's
Michel. Sorry, guys. I need to bring in Hassan as well. He hasn't said.
Yeah, Hassan hasn't
yeah,
spoken.
yeah.
Go ahead,
He
Hassan.
hasn't spoken, but Hassan wanted me to play a video. He sent it to me, and he told me to skip to 15:05. So I'm just gonna play that and let Hassan have his say.
And work,
Arnold.
spending time with the family. Yes, so that please. I was just wondering what kinds of changes you'd like to see in the educational system in California.
I think the most important thing when you talk about education is to give the children the opportunity to get the best education possible, because it's all about opportunity. For so long, we hear always the kind of rhetoric, you know, that California or America is the land of opportunity for everyone. Well, it is the land of opportunity, but it's not necessarily for everyone. Like, for instance, when I became governor, I found out that there was a lawsuit that was filed by the Williams family, which is an African-American family that felt like their child does not get equal education. And the state fought the lawsuit saying, well, the state doesn't have the obligation to provide equal education. So when I came into it, they spent $20 million on that lawsuit. I mean, think about the craziness. So I came into office and I heard about that and I said, we got to settle the lawsuit. Of course, the state has the responsibility to provide every school, if it is a inner city school, should have the same books available, the same homework material available, everything the same quality teachers available, so those students can also get equal education. Because it's all about making sure that everyone can get to the starting line equally, not to the finish line. There will be
Can I
equity
jump
versus
in there
equality.
for a second?
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let Hassan have his say, guys.
I think it plays a little bit longer for maybe.
Should I carry on?
Yeah, just a little bit longer. Then he'll move on.
you know, socialism or communism. I don't believe in that. What I believe in is that everyone should have the same opportunity. So therefore, every child should be able to be as smart as possible and have the best teachers. So when they get to apply for universities, they can all apply equally and no one has to be shooed in because they have been disadvantaged all along. So that's, I think the key thing is the opportunities must be available, the community colleges, that we have choices for kids if they want to go to career tech education like I did when I started out as a kid, or if you want to go to higher education, your community college, this university, private university, all of those should be available for the kids and have the best teachers, and for the state to always provide the funds. Like this year, we increased education funding to $55.1 billion from kindergarten through 14. So there's an increase of $5 billion because our economy is doing much better now, so we can afford to pay that money. We put an extra $1 billion into higher education, $40 million, for instance, in Cal grants, $130 million the state is putting into universities because we suspended the increase in tuition fees. Because the economy is doing well, so I said, no increase in tuitions this year.
Can I just ask, can we stop it here for a second? Because this is going more into the finance side of things.
Yeah.
But Hassan, that video, just to let you know, I'm going to ask Jake a couple of questions here. First of all,
hold on, Damon. Hassan wanted to make a point. That's why he asked me.
Yeah.
To play.
Okay, yeah.
Hold that thought, bro. Hold that thought.
Yeah, so that's just a simple example of the state actually fighting individuals, stating that they don't have any obligation to provide equal opportunity, which might go into the factor of why at some points you will actually set up rules on the back end, trying to shoehorn in people. So it's not inherently a racist or institutional racism to provide extra opportunities for people that may have been disadvantaged at the beginning, because there's clear examples of people being disadvantaged intentionally.
Right. So the thing is that with this particular thing, Jake, Schwarzenegger ran as a Republican, right?
At first, yeah.
Yeah. And at the time of this speech, what was he? Do you know? Do you happen to know?
I don't know exactly what time frame that speech was, but I would assume he sounds like a Republican, to be honest.
Right. So the thing is that it's interesting. He says he's not for communism or socialism, but technically, in this
Later,
argument,
his policies. Yeah.
This very much is, because the difference between the UK educational system and how it's funded in the American isn't it, Jake, in America that the schools are funded by housing tax?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So if you're living in a shitty neighborhood, and
you're going to get less
poor,
funding for the school. Sure.
you're going to get less funding for the school. Whereas if you want to focus on upward mobility, you work harder, you save up your money, you try to move to a better, more expensive area so that you can get a better education for your kid, then you're going to have a better school.
Correct.
Now, to have somebody come along and say, we're going to look at all of the people who worked really hard, right? And who managed to live in an affluent neighborhood so they can get a better education for their kids. And we're going to say, well, fuck your struggle.
Mhm.
Screw you for trying to work hard and become successful. We're going to take most of your money and we're going to give it to the poor people. That is socialism. So
That sounds like socialism. Look at Venezuela.
How can this guy say, oh, I don't advocate for socialism? The only thing that might be is when he said, we're going to give you guys choice.
Yeah.
Now, here's the funny thing. Liberals want to say that all of this is racism. Liberals want to say that it's black people who are disadvantaged by this and have a poor education because black people are held back. They like to believe the myth that the reason why white people are rich is because of inherited wealth. That's bullshit. Only about 21% of millionaires received any kind of inheritance.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
In America. If you look at America, only about, I think in the UK, it's even less than that. Now, I think it was 16.
Did you say that white people believe that white people are rich because of inherited wealth?
Liberal people, left-wing people like to believe the myth.
I've never heard this.
Oh, dude, watch some talks on it, because if ever you look at
there's a bunch of debates on it, JM.
Yeah, if you ever try to
These
look
white
at
liberals these white liberals saying it, yeah.
No.
Well, I mean,
black
definitely
liberals
white
and white liberals.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a big talking point for BLM. It's a big talking point for people.
Guys, you need to stop referencing BLM as well. I think this is. Let's talk about BLM.
Well, we're talking about race. BLM.
They're all blacks, bro. BLM.
And there's more liberal black people than there are conservative black people.
Yeah, I really would like to address BLM. Can I just quickly address BLM? Is that okay? Just for a couple of
Can I just finish this point? Can I just finish this point? And we'll come to. So the thing is that if you look at inheritance, like literally, like I think 16 people, the 16% of millionaires in America got something like $100,000, and only a tiny percentage, like I think it was 2 or 3%, got $1 million. So when progressives like to attack elites by saying, you guys are privileged because you've got this inherited wealth and the rest of us are poor, that's rubbish. America and the UK, most of the West, people who got rich, it's because of upward mobility, not because of inheritance. So people have that capacity. And when people try to say that the black people are struggling because they're the poorest in America, the richest demographic of people in America, if you look at the subsets, are actually black people as well. Because the richest people in America, as far as I remember from the last survey that was done, was Nigerians. And it's because they have a family unit, it's because they get a good education, and it's because if they move to America rather than being born in America, they first understand that they need to have savings, they need to have doctorates. Most of them have doctorates. I think the highest group that has doctorates is Nigerians, I think, still. I still think
no, that's 100% correct, actually. Nigerians actually do, yeah.
So that work ethic, when they go to America and they succeed, how are you going to tell me that there's systemic racism? Are they going to basically look at some black people and say, well, do you know what? You're Jamaican and I don't like your kind of black, but you're a Nigerian and I love your kind of black. That isn't how it works. You can't look at the system and say it works that way. But to then say, because this is a liberal talking point, this is a very left-wing talking point of saying, well, the black neighborhoods are disadvantaged and they've got bad schools, and this is an evidence of systemic racism. The right wing in America are constantly putting forward the one thing that would defeat that, which is they're trying to say you should have school choice. You shouldn't be restricted to have to go to the school that is in the neighborhood that you're in. You should be able to send your kids to other schools. And the liberals keep shooting that down. So if that's your evidence to say systemic racism exists, then you need to understand that it's the progressive liberals that are enforcing it.
Wasn't he a Republican? 1, 2, didn't the state, instead of spending 20 million to fight a legal case not to provide equal opportunity, wouldn't it be not systematic racism or institutional racism, just to provide the opportunity?
Well, all you have to provide is opportunity.
Yeah.
But the thing is that how are you going to say you're going to provide it? Because the liberals like saying, look, we've provided an opportunity.
By not suing them when they
don't do it.
But by not suing the individuals who asked for it when they asked for it.
Sorry?
So she said she wanted the same books in her school as they have in the wealthier area. The state said no, and they spent $20 million fighting her. And he overthrew
because they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to do that. If you're
Yeah,
if
but
you're
if
in a
they,
poor area, if you're in a
yeah,
poor area with lower housing value,
yes,
and the liberals are telling you this is the school you have to go to,
hmm
and then you should, and your argument is, well, I should have the same access to the same amount of books, the same
yeah,
school funding, and everything else as these other schools. Why
yes,
should you have it? You live in an area with
hmm
lower value, and that is how the taxing system works. That's how the school funding system works there, right? So if you want that, then move to a better area. And if your argument is, well, I can't afford it, then unfortunately, like I said before, there's no fair society unless you're willing to give the government full control. And that's what the liberals want. That's what the
Okay,
left
guys.
wing want.
Right.
Because
Go ahead,
And
their argument.
and
Hold on,
that
hold on.
fairness
Guys,
always
guys,
leads to communism, bro. That's the
guys,
thing when
Exactly.
you distribute everything equally. And
let
that's
John
always
Michel
failed.
let John Michel address BLM, and then I've got a question from Alil Drinky Poo. Shouts to you, and Andrew Guildfield as well. Welcome to the channel. Shouts to you as well. But Alil Drinky Poo has a question that I want you guys to engage with. And okay, sorry, John Michel, go ahead and
Yeah,
address
that's a quick thing. I think it's
BLM.
important that when we have these kind of discussions, we don't inject straw man arguments into it. They say this and they feel this, and well, you have no real evidence.
Yeah, we do.
It's just an evidence. It's just a statement to kind of make your point. When there's actually no evidence for said people saying said thing.
These are some of the most prominent talking points.
I find that very problematic when people do that. So, for example, BLM don't say anything. So when you say the BLM say thing, BLM is a defunct organization, a defunct, bogus organization that no one takes seriously. They don't represent black people. So I don't like the fact that whenever we have these discussions about black issues, you guys quickly refer to BLM. BLM never had the support of the black community, all of the black community. They're the support of lesbians, gays, anarchists. These were the
Elites.
these were the people that were the founders. They had a lot of white anarchists that were involved with BLM. In fact, a lot of these BLM marches that you guys were referring to were full of white anarchists. Antifa is a white organization. Okay, people forget that Antifa is a white organization,
That's
and they are
true.
linked to BLM. So when we talk about BLM, we need to have much more of an understanding of what we're talking about. They're not synonymous with black people. Number one, they're synonymous with a group that was created with white people by white people with lesbian and gay agendas. They never represented black people. No one takes them seriously. No black person I know takes them seriously. So we really need to stop referencing them with regards to black people.
Why?
I just explained why.
Yeah, I know, but what
They don't
makes you think
represent.
that explanation is?
They don't represent black people.
With all due
J-
respect, JM, you're one guy speaking. You're just one guy speaking, and there's loads of people out there.
Can I ask
lot
him a
more
question real
people.
quick?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, JM. Okay, so I don't know if you know how black people vote, but
Mostly Democrat. I understand that. Yeah.
vast. It wasn't until Donald Trump where Donald Trump's actually this year is getting 20% of that voting base, or close to, anyways. So all throughout the years, black people have been voting Democrat, drastically Democrat. So obviously BLM is a Democrat-run society, or run, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, they're, in my opinion, they're a terrorist organization, but they're Democrats, bro. They speak the same regurgitating talking points that the CNN and the mainstream media tells people how to think, and so obviously the vast majority of black people do vote Democrat, bro. So it is a liberal organization. So again, if you're going to say, well, stop bringing up BLM because Antifa was involved in those riots, that is true. But you do realize that drastic
Antifa's
amount
also
of these
Democrat.
rioters were black as well. But
what is the average black person in America's views towards the LGBT agenda?
Sure,
what is
sure.
you live in the country,
Sure,
and
sure.
what is the average black person's view towards the LGBT trans issue? What is the average black person's view towards that?
For sure, they're against it, but that's
Right.
progressivism. But hold up.
Unless you look at Gen Zers.
Yeah, unless you look at Gen Zers, bro, they're getting more and more to the left as the community comes. And here's the thing, JM, going back to the systematic racism, because I wanted to circle back to this. If you look at the policies, I'm not the policies. If you look at like the examples that I gave you with Walmart, etc., a lot of people want to blame it's because the system's racist. And we can all agree that when a father is not in the household, they're about 65% more likely to have some type of criminal acts, right, JM? Like the father's very important in the household.
Absolutely. I don't know about the stats about 60% more, but it's definitely more proclivity towards.
It's drastically more. The
opposed to
stats
right.
have shown that when you take the father out of the household.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay,
I've
cool,
seen
cool. Yeah. So the black community, at least here in America, I'm just giving you stats here in America. Black people are born bastards 75% of the time. That's a huge number in the black community. So wouldn't it be pretty to a conclusion that because the black community doesn't have fathers, they're committing more crimes? So therefore, your main point, or one of your points here, is that, oh, it's systematic because of the police. But if you look at the stats, that black people are the vast majority of the race that are born without fathers, they're committing 52% of the murders, and they're committing 37% of all violent crimes. It makes sense because they don't have a father figure within the household. So this is why you see that. Hold on. But here's my question though. Is it because of the system, or is it because black people don't have a father within the household?
Right. I'm gonna say it's both. I'm gonna tell you why I think it's both. So both.
Which one's more? Which one's more likely?
Okay. Let me explain why I say it's both, and then I'll make my conclusion. So, I'm gonna agree with you that there's no doubt about it that single parenthood families within deprived black areas do produce much more crime ridden areas. There's no we see elements of even that in the UK. No, I'm not going to ever try to dispute that, but I'm going to give you one story that shows how the criminalization of black people may also be contributing to these stats when it comes to criminality. There was an incident recently where a black guy was he was stopped this is in America. So he was driving along, he got stopped by the police. They said that this is a stolen car. He said, no, this is my car. They said, no, this guy is stolen. He got up, there's video of this. He got out of the car with his hands up. He said, look, guys, this is my car. They said, no. They threw him to the floor. They attacked him with a dog. Okay, he had his hands up. Then it transpired that he was right. The car wasn't his. Okay, the car was his. Sorry, the car was actually his. The police admitted that the car was his, yet they still charged him with a resisting arrest. Okay, because for literally no reason. So on the books right now, let me finish. On the books right now, what's going to happen? This is going to go to appeal, and he's going to probably get those charges dropped. However, on the books right now, there's another black person that's being criminalized. And this is my point. Yes, I'm acknowledging the fact, what you said, with regards to the issue with criminality within the black community because of fatherlessness. But I'm not going to ignore the fact that America specifically has a long history coming from slavery, when black people pulled out of the plantations and they didn't have any homes. Then there was vagrancy laws, so black people were criminalized just having been homeless through no fault of their own. So America has had a history of criminalizing black people.
Yeah, and we acknowledge. And I said that Jim Crow.
Hold on.
Let him finish. I want to respond real quick to that.
Yeah, I want Jake to respond more than any other group. So when you have a system that criminalizes a group of people more than others, of course that's going to be represented in the stats.
Okay.
Jake, respond to it. Respond to it.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah. I'm sorry. Just real quick, and then
a little drink of food. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, let me respond to that. So you're stating, well, there's one incident that happened where, yeah, and you said that he got arrested for resisting arrest, right? So he was wrongfully accused, and then he resisted arrest.
Not
He
yet, though. Yeah, it hasn't been established that he's wrongfully accused. But obviously, he has a lawyer on the case.
Well, yeah, but they thought that they had their guy. They thought they had their guy. Then he resisted arrest, and then they
He did.
charged him for
Yeah.
for resisting arrest, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here's and you're right, the charges will be dropped because of that, but you're saying the stats still reflect that. That's not true. If he gets it appealed, he won't be on those stats. But again, even if the case is that he was wrongfully accused, the right thing to do is to say, you know what, this is not true. I'm gonna go about it with the police. Go ahead and arrest me. That's fine. If you look at the stats, Black people are the ones that actually resist arrest the most, like by far. It's not even close. Again, all of the 37% of all violent crimes. Violent means physical. It could be armed robbery, etc. Is committed by Black people. So if he resisted, then they're arresting him for that. But of course, it'll get all peeled out, and it won't reflect the stats, bro. So that's my response there. If anybody else wants to,
guys, I need this question answered. I've got a question here.
Yeah, I was trying to bring it onto that.
Question for both debaters. How do you prove there is racist selective enforcement of law without appealing to race? X has more justice system interactions than race. Why?
I've already addressed what I think on this, so I'll let JM go first.
Yeah, well, there's two things that play that you have to consider. Number one is I spoke about practices, not the law, practices. So you can have a very just law, but if the practices are discriminatory, that will then result in discriminatory behavior, discriminatory outcomes. So it's not about the law, it's about the practices. When it comes to race X having more justice system interactions, that literally falls in line with what I just said. If you have a situation where you have a police force that specifically target people for stop and search, for example, right? They specifically target a group of people for stop and search. That may yield results that suggest that there's more interactions based on criminality, but that's not necessarily so. The interactions are based on prejudice and bias. That has no factor in terms of criminality, and that's why
that's not what he's asking.
That's why I made the point that some people, when we look at these stop and search statistics, the arrest after the stop and searches, the actual conviction rate is very, very low, which highlights that these were innocent people that were stopped and searched. However, the interaction is higher. So interaction with police has nothing to do with criminality. Necessarily, it does not.
Okay, let me just ask it, because the way I think he's asking it is not really what you're answering.
We'll let him say that.
Well, look, let me just assume it then and just say that it's my question in that case. I pointed out earlier to you, when I mentioned, and Jake said it now, that if you have a smaller group, if you have a smaller number of people than another number, if you have a minority group, yet they're committing an overwhelmingly higher number of crime, then that could be something that will explain this isn't necessarily racism. Then it's actually just that these people are being more violent, and the reason why the police are targeting is because of that. How can you prove that there's racist selective enforcement of the law, which is what you're saying there, without making that argument? Like, without appealing to race X has more interactions than race Y. How would you prove that there's a racist selective?
I'll give you an example. If you had, let's say you had a group, let's say you had 20 white blokes walking down the street, carrying weapons.
Drinky, come in.
Let me finish. In the process of doing some type of criminal behavior, 20. Then you had, let's say, 7 black guys doing exactly the same thing. If you have a police system that systematically targets the black men more, 17.5 times more likely to stop them more than the white guys that are out there committing crime, the stats would reflect what you've just highlighted. Oh, black men are more likely to commit crime. That's not necessarily the case. If you're much more 17 times more likely to stop black men walking around the streets than you are than white men, then of course the stats are going to be skewed. Of course the stats are going to suggest that black men are committing crimes at a higher rate.
No,
That's
only if you prove it. Only if you
I've
prove that
just
they're
highlighted.
guilty.
I've just said if you got if they're being stopped 17.5 times more, logic would dictate that over a period of time, stats will highlight that black people commit more crimes. If they're stopped 17.5 more times, this is logic.
No, it's not logic.
It is.
If
Well,
they're
you don't
stopped,
understand it then, but it is logic.
no,
Say you
I'm
don't
not.
understand
What?
it.
No, because you're saying that just because they're stopped 17.5% more times, that afterwards that means that they commit more crime. No, it doesn't mean they commit more crime. It's only if
You're
you
not
stop them and
understanding
you
what I
find
said.
out that they've broken the law. Well, that's how you phrase
I
it.
said they could. I said if you, I just give you the example of 7 black guys going out there to commit crime, and 20 white men going out there to commit crime. So they're all criminals. All of them are
Okay.
criminals. But the black boys are 17 times more likely to be stopped. So all of the 7 black guys will be stopped. Okay.
Yeah, but
all of them will be
now
stopped.
you've put forward a loaded.
And none of the white guys would be stopped. If you think about
Okay,
70
but do you
times
see
more
what
likely,
you've done there? Do you see
that
what you've done
potentially
there?
could happen.
You've
You
said
understand that now?
Yeah, I understand that, but look at what you've
Okay.
done. You've created a system. You've created an argument which supports your narrative. You've basically said
No, I haven't.
yes, you have, because listen what you said. You said in this
The
hypothetical.
17.5 times is not my statistic, bro. This is not my statistic.
No, but the statistic that's yours is that you've loaded the question there by stating that you know that all of the white guys went out there and they are all committing crimes.
I'm
And
giving
that
an
the black
example of why.
yeah, you've given an
Okay,
example that
guys,
favors your narrative.
We've got Aliu Drinkipu here. He will he's the one who asked the question, so he's gonna clarify the question. Aliu Drinkipu, welcome to Solution Podcast channel. Yeah, go ahead, bro. Clarify it.
Yeah. So I'm going to use a hypothetical that should be able to kind of encompass the question I was trying to ask. So imagine you're in a courtroom and you're trying to make the case that a certain police district is using racist selective enforcement of law. All right. So you're making your case to the judge. The judge goes back to you and says, you can use any proof that you find with the exception of one race has more justice system interactions compared to another. Does that make sense?
No.
I just want to clarify the way you said that more justly.
Say that again, Aliu Drinkipu. Say that again.
Okay. So imagine you're in a courtroom trying to make the case that a certain police district is using racist selective enforcement of law. So this police district is only targeting particular races for racist reasons. That's the case that you're trying to make towards this judge. The judge says back to you, okay, you can provide any sort of evidence that you can find with the exception of saying that one race has more interactions with this police department versus another.
You couldn't.
So wait, my question to you would be, how do you classify those police interactions?
I mean, it could be anything. So it could be, someone walking down the street and then they have a stop and search. Could be, unwarranted, or it could be, what do you call it? House searches without warrants.
No, what I'm saying is that somebody might reduce that down to you saying, you're trying to say that this particular police force is stopping black people more than white people, right?
Sure.
And the judge says, okay, prove it, but you're not allowed to say that it's because black people get stopped more than white people.
You couldn't do that. It wouldn't make sense.
Well,
that would be the evidence.
You're
the answer, bro. The answer would be because it's more of a poorer community, and thus the crime rate in that community is higher. Thus, I have more of a suspicion base to stop them. That's
Yeah,
I mean,
because
that's the
police
real
officer's
answer, bro. That's
job
the real
is
answer.
this is the funny thing, because the police officer's job is to profile. And then you've got people saying profiling is racist.
Anybody want?
Is profiling racist?
No, it's not, because usually
No, exactly.
it's
if
not.
it's
No.
evidence-based, if it's evidence-based, it's not racist. If it's not evidence-based, it is.
Right. So
It
this
potentially.
is my question, JM. If you exist in a society where 12% of the people commit 52 or 56% of the crime, that's all violent, right? And then you have a police force that says, okay, these are the people who commit overwhelmingly the higher amount of crime compared to these other people. Whenever I see one of them that's looking suspicious, I'm more likely to stop them because the evidence suggests that they are more likely to be committing the crime.
Well, but I
Are
don't
you going to
believe
say
that.
that means that
I
it's
don't
systemic
believe that
racism?
that people are more likely to commit more crimes. I
But
just
what
told
the
you.
statistics show.
I
The
don't.
statistics show.
Okay, all right. That's it to you.
Well, okay, no.
Hold
All
on,
I'm saying
hold on,
is that
hold on. Let me make my point.
Let him answer. Let him
Yeah,
answer.
let me make my point. If we're talking about profiling within an area, a crime-ridden area that happens to be majority black, of course it makes more sense for black people to target, for police to assume that criminals within that in that area are potentially going to be black. That's not the issue. Okay, so what we have to understand is this, first of all. Most black people in America are not criminals. This is very important for people to understand. A minority of black people in America are criminals. Do we all agree with that?
Yeah, Jam, I do agree with you on that for sure.
Okay.
But however,
Right.
the stats show that blacks commit majority of the murders and violent crimes.
Right.
That's
So
where the profiling kind of comes in.
I'm not going to dispute that. And if you look at anyone of note, that for example, in Scotland, we're in Scotland here, there was an epidemic of knife crimes, and murder in Scotland. Why? What was the reason given there? Deprivation, poverty, lack of opportunity. That's what was given as the reason why there was an abundance of crime. If you look all around the world, wherever you see abundance of deprivation, poverty, etc., you're going to see high crime rates.
Yeah.
We all can acknowledge that within America, a lot of the most poorest communities are also the one with the highest black population. We agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the fact that there potentially could be more crime within these communities makes sense, doesn't it?
No.
Why?
Okay, so you brought up a what was it? Scotland?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the majority of the skin color over there in Scotland?
White.
It's white. So if you look at Scotland and it's like probably 99% white people, there is no real discrimination there. It shows that when it comes to the people that are less poverty, it shows that the crime rate is higher, right? So you need to make an argument that because of their skin color, that's why they're in poverty. But there's no law in place that says.
I'm not making that argument.
Okay, but you brought up Scotland, and it's all white people. There's no real.
The point I was saying is that because of deprivation and poverty is why there was.
And I agree with you. I agree with you on that, JM. But listen to my point. Again, I already brought up how the black community has a 75% bastard rate, and you can agree that the father is very important when it comes to not raising criminals in society.
Yeah.
So again, is it because of the system or is it because of the choices that black people have made?
I say both.
Okay.
Wait a second.
So now you're saying both.
Cut in.
I've always said both.
Because I think this is JM being a little bit trying to not give a fixed position on anything, because then it's easy to defend.
That's what you do, not me.
No. How do I do that? I've given.
Okay, can I ask you another question? What's the majority, JM? Is it because of fatherless households? Is it because of the system? What's the majority? Is it 90% system, 10% fatherless households, or is it 50-50? Is it 40-60? What is it? What's the majority?
I'm going to say in America, specifically in those urban areas.
Overall, not the urban area. Overall. Like your opinion on it. Just give me a ballpark number.
Is it the fatherlessness,
Or is it the system? Yeah.
Is it the system? I'd say about equal.
So it's 50-50?
I would say it's about 50-50.
Okay, go on, Damon.
Yeah, so okay, so my point is this: like when it comes down to certain things, if you're going to analyze things and if you're going to blame things on racism, I think I'd like to take it back in a moment to Drinky, because that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight about. I don't know if this is exactly what he was getting at, but this is, if you want to say that a system is racist, if you want to say that something is racist, you need to be able to prove that there's actual racism, and not just say, look, something is going on here. Racism could explain this. It could be racism. We've got evidence of this phenomena happening, and therefore we're just going to say that it's racism. No, you have to form a link. You have to form a link between the two. Now, JM, I'd like to ask you something. I asked you this before in the chat, okay? Now, honestly, this isn't a trap. I'm not trying to trap you or anything. It's not a loaded question or anything like that, but genuinely, just for the sake of argument, call me a cracker. Just go ahead and do it. Just for the sake of this argument.
I'll be honest with you, Jake. I don't engage in that language, even for jest or for joke.
I didn't say that. Wasn't me. It was Damon. That
I don't, because of my principles and how I view.
Okay, fine.
Take racism lightly. I don't.
Okay, fine. Let's hypothetically. Can we hypothetically assume that you've said the word and you've called me a cracker? Can we at least?
Hassan will say it.
Okay, no. Let's just We'll hypothetically.
Okay, how about Damon? Just pretend I'm a black person. Now I'm calling you a cracker. Go.
Okay, fine. So that's the thing. Now you've called me a cracker, right? Now, JM, going to you, would you say that this was an example of racism?
Okay, so we had the discussion before.
No, I'm just asking briefly.
Yeah, I know. So we spoke about intent. Did we spoke about intent?
Yeah.
Right. We spoke about two things: intent and how it's received by the person. Those are two factors.
No. I gave 4 examples. I said,
but I gave 2. You gave 4. I narrowed it down.
I wanted to be clearer. I wanted to be clear. Is it intent that's necessary, or is it my feelings on being called that word that's necessary, or is it both of those things, or is it neither of those things? Which thing is necessary to determine that it's racist?
I can't go with your criteria because I don't agree with those. Those are too simplified for me.
You're choosing 2 rather than the 4 that I'm giving you. How's it more simplified?
You didn't. You just gave 2.
I gave 4. I gave 4 options. Is it intent? Is it the feelings of the person receiving it? Is it both of those things, or is it neither of those things?
But that's not
giving you 4 options. Of course, it's 4 options.
Okay. So it's both of them and other things as well. That's what
I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a multitude of factors. Yes, it's intent. Yes, it's how the person has perceived it. Okay. Yes.
So why the discussion did we have?
Yes, it's the actual language that's being used is we have to factor in.
In the discussion that we had, you sat down on the closest answer you gave was you said it's the person feeling it.
No,
it's the person who's hearing it.
That's not true.
Yes,
David.
you did.
Yes, I'm going to read what No, I didn't. You're lying again.
I can pull it up for you. I'm not lying.
I'm going to read what I said. I've got it right here. I'm going to read what I said. I didn't say that. Okay. I never said that. I literally said the overwhelming issue is the language that's used. Okay. Has it been used to demean or insult the person? That was my answer. I didn't say it's down to
go further. When I was pressing you to give me a clearer structured.
Hold on, you kept pushing for that because that's the answer you wanted me to say.
No, that isn't the answer I wanted you to say.
I would never. It's not intelligent to limit
that. That isn't the answer.
No,
that's not the answer that I wanted you to say. I wanted you to.
I'm not going to give it the answer you want me to say. I'm going to give the answer that I want to say.
I said I wasn't trying to get for you to give me an answer that I wanted you to say. I wasn't trying for that.
Okay, but that's the answer I gave. It wasn't just that you suggested that I said it was just about how the
The,
person
the
feels.
problem that
I'm
I
saying
have
no.
with your answer is that you're saying it's a multitude of things. It's a
It
multitude of
is.
factors. It's
It
this, it's
is.
that. So when we try to discuss what it is, you can move the goalposts all the
I
time.
haven't moved the
because you
goalposts.
said,
I'm giving you a
stop it
definition.
for a second. Stop it for a second.
Oh,
You're
by the
leaving
way,
the
I have a
door
question
open.
after the rant. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
You're leaving the door open for you to later on say, but we also need to consider this, but we also need to consider that. But we
No,
also...
no, I
So
haven't.
the minute we reach a consensus on what it is, you can add more and more and more ephemeral
Straw
shit
manning
to it.
again. You're straw manning again.
No, I'm not straw manning again. Please
You
know
are.
the definition of words you're using, bro.
No, you are
Come
straw
on.
manning because you're saying
Use
something
the-
I didn't
use the-
say. I haven't
I'm
said
not
that.
saying something you didn't say. I'm literally repeating exactly what you said.
You're
said I said it was a
suggesting that I would
multitude of
add to the
factors.
definition and change the goalpost. I'm saying I won't do
I'm
that,
not
and I haven't done that.
suggesting. I'm saying it's an outright
Okay, let's
fact
hear
that
each
by
other out. Let's hear each other out, guys. We've
giving
got 20
such
minutes
an
left.
answer,
Let's hear each other out.
by giving such an answer, you leave the door open to for yourself later on
How?
to say, but no, stop for a second, dude. If I'm trying to pin things down and say, let's understand what is necessary. That you don't need to say a multitude of factors, because those multitude of factors can come under one of those things. It can come under either neither of those things is something extra, or both of those things, or it's to do with the intent of the person that's saying
But
it,
this is the
whatever
criteria
multitude
that
of
you have
factors
put
there
forward.
might be.
This is the criteria that you have put forward. I don't agree with that criteria. I believe
I'm
that
not
it's
saying that you're
nuanced in
agreeing.
that.
I gave you options, but you still want to have it more
Because I
flexible
don't
for
believe
yourself.
I don't
Yeah.
your options are limited in
Right,
space
okay,
and time.
so
Let's
hang on a
understand
second
that.
then. Hang on a second then. When we were talking about this whole idea, and I was just trying to get you to give an explanation what it is, and when I was saying, look, there has to be an understanding of if somebody makes a claim that's racist, there has to be an understanding of, first of all, could it have been something else? Or are you jumping to make assumptions here? And when I put forward that idea, you said to me, you were outraged, like, how dare I, a white guy, talk to you about what racism is, and you're black, as if that you've got this argument of authority going on. I'm sorry, but for you to get pissed off, you've got an off.
I do.
So that's not racist, right? Saying
How is that racist?
a white guy
Okay,
can't talk to a white guy. A white guy can't talk
Hassan,
about what racism is.
Hassan,
Yeah.
can you hear me, Hassan?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Who has more authority to highlight what is Islamophobia? You or me?
Oh no, don't bring this to Islamophobia. We're talking about
No.
racism.
I did the reason.
No, racism.
Hassan, can you answer?
No, racism. No,
Hassan, can you
Islamophobia
answer?
is something
Hassan,
that
can you
relates to
answer?
Islamophobia.
Damon,
is something
Damon,
that relates to
let him do his example. Just
Yeah,
go ahead
then
and let
come
him do
back
his
to it, and then
example, bro.
come back. Yeah,
Just
go
let
ahead.
him.
I would say a person who's has more interaction, understands the levels of Islamophobia would be a person who would be a Muslim in comparison to a person who isn't.
Why? Can you analyze? Can you break down why that is though?
Because they would have more experience, I guess, because they're the individuals facing the particular prejudice. And plus, I just want to add, Damien, you didn't give 4 options. You gave, I think, 2 options and 2 permutations.
No. I gave 4 options.
It would be
the two categories that I gave.
Yeah.
I presented as 4 different options. So that's still 4 options.
Could
Because it could be one, the other, a combination, or neither.
Yeah, so that's 2 options and 2 permutations.
No. I'm giving you 1 option, 2 options, 3 options, 4 options.
Okay, can you?
The two categories that I'm laying it out as, I still have nothing to do with the fact that it could be neither one of those things, and the 2 categories joined up is still a third option.
Yeah, those are all options.
You can argue
it's
semantics
either A,
if you want
B,
to.
A and B, or none. Those are all
You
options.
can argue semantics all you want to, but the fact is that it's still better structured than saying it's a multitude of factors, but I'm not really going to go into all of it because it's so much that I can just bring that shit up later on in an argument when I want to move the goalposts. Anyhow.
So I just want to say this. So you can either have strawberry, apple and strawberry, or neither. Doesn't consider bananas or pineapples or whether variables that may not be considered.
No, but it's giving me 4 options of what I'm going to give you as my answer.
I would say 2 options and 2 permutations, because there's
Again,
other.
you can argue semantics if you want to, but at least
not
I gave
semantics.
a
But,
structured
Hassan,
answer.
Hassan, you can agree that okay. So
Yeah.
for example, vanilla,
Damon-
chocolate, vanilla and chocolate, or nothing. Those
Can
are
I
options.
can I ask Hassan a question? Hassan, so you're Muslim. If I wanted to
Yeah.
talk to you and say, hey, look,
Yeah.
I don't have your worldview. I don't understand exactly how you've been persecuted because I'm not in your shoes, right? So if I try to lecture to you about your feelings if somebody is trying to discriminate against you or persecute you,
Yeah.
obviously that isn't going to look right, correct?
Because it's lecture, yeah, it wouldn't look right now.
Right. So, but what about if we're discussing not something as specific as Islamophobia that is only going to target you and people who believe in your faith, but if we're talking about a system of discrimination that can affect everybody, if I was to assume you can't talk to me about that, or I can't talk to somebody else about that, would I be narrow-minded and would I be guilty of the same racism that exists when we're talking about something that can affect all races equally if I'm going to assume that it only affects my race over everybody else's and I solely have an ownership over racism and therefore I'm the authority on it? Can you maybe understand that? That it's not the same example as if I'm trying to compare it to something like Islamophobia. The 2 things aren't comparable. Or am I insane in thinking that?
Well, I don't think you're insane. I don't think it would be lecturing. I think these might be loaded terms. It's just when you factor in a person, maybe a minority, an ethnic minority, or that.
Well, let's discuss that term. Let's discuss that term in minority, right?
Real quick, Hassan, you're right. Damon's not insane, but I am, right?
But the thing is that I'm living in London, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a Catholic in London, and I'm white in London. I'm actually in minority.
Yes.
I'm actually a minority in London. Okay, so why am I not being given this special privilege, this designated victimhood status that JM thinks he's entitled to?
I don't know.
And
hold on a second.
And if we wait a second.
No,
If we
hold
look
on,
at the world today,
hold on a second.
Damon, he doesn't think
Because
like that.
this is something you keep leveling at me with absolutely zero evidence of.
You said you're an authority on racism, and somebody else can't talk to you.
Okay, by this logic, when that police chief highlighted racism in his police force, he's pretending to be a victim. So the act of identifying what is and isn't racism.
How's he pretending to be a victim?
Because literally he does what I did. He looked at evidence and he made a conclusion based on that. And in this case, it's a concluded racism. You equate that with a black person.
It doesn't make him look like a victim.
You equate that because he's not black. That's why you won't do it. That's my point. That's the issue. Because he's not black, you won't do it. But if a black person does exactly the same thing that he does, looks at the evidence, looks at the data, and concludes, actually, yes, racism is a factor here. When a black person does that, you label them a victim.
I would label a white person who did it a victim.
Bias.
That's not my bias. You literally said that you're an authority on racism. No, you said you're an authority on racism because you're black, and that a white person can't talk to you about it.
No, hold on. Let me clarify what I said. I said when it comes to describing what is racist in terms of language and how it affects people, I said to you before I mentioned myself, I said the people that are more likely to be victims of said behavior are the ones that we should listen to more than those who are not.
Hold on real quick. Jam.
Let me make this point. Sorry, quick this point. That's why I brought up the situation with Hassan. The same way that someone that identifies as a Jew, okay, he has more authority over me to identify what is anti-Semitic, because he's more likely to be a victim of anti-Semitism than I am. Hold on. He has more experience in identifying anti-Semitism, where it be overt, where it be subtle. He has more indicators. He's privy to more indicators than I am.
You're comparing a system of hate that affects one specific group with a system of hate that by its very definition affects everybody. Okay,
No,
I
I'm
can
not.
understand that if yes, you are. You're comparing
No, I'm not.
Islamophobia and
You
You're
don't.
comparing
You just don't
Islamophobia.
understand. You just
You're,
don't get it.
dude,
I'm
you're
village,
saying
I'm
that
on label.
you're saying that you're the authority on racism, something which affects
I
everybody.
didn't say
And
that.
you're comparing. Yes, you
Well,
did. You said
well,
it 3 or 4 times.
Damon,
I
Jam,
never said that.
Jam,
I never said I'm
Jam.
the
didn't actually
Can
say
I
that.
just clarify something? Can I?
This guy keeps straw manning people all the
Okay,
time.
Jam. Can I
I've got
clarify
your
something?
text.
Jam. Can I clarify something?
Go ahead, bro.
Okay, so what Damon's basically saying is that, and look, because you're black, therefore you have more experience to spot black racism, right? Is that your
Anti-black racism? Yes.
anti-black? Okay, fair enough. So because I'm Hispanic,
Right.
wouldn't I have the authority to spot anti-Hispanic racism, whatever the fuck, right?
Over me.
Okay, and then same thing with Jews, etc., right?
Yeah.
Okay, so is there any definition? Because again, if you just define racism as an act of somebody that discriminates or goes against somebody for their skin color, so that's the would you
Or
agree with that definition?
Or
Huh?
ethnicity.
Okay, cool. So if you're going to leave it up to the personal person to say that, well, because of my skin color, I can acknowledge that this is racist because of my skin color, based off of the people, right? That's your claim?
I'm saying that they're more likely to.
Okay, they're more likely. Okay,
Yes,
they're more
they're
likely.
likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if they're more likely, you do realize that if you have 13% of the United States is black people. And again, that's a big portion of people that have individual thoughts. So every single black person is going to look at racism, etc., very differently. Based off of interaction. Same thing with Hispanics. Like, for example, with me, you can say wetback or spick or whatever. I don't think that's racist. I don't care. Okay. And I've dealt with people that, on the internet or whatever, and in real life, like, oh yeah, you're a wetback, whatever. And I'm like, they're just whatever. It doesn't matter. So again, if you're going to leave it up to the individual, that means you're leaving it up to feelings. And when we base things off of feelings, that's how shit gets really very congested.
With all due respect,
but Jam, here's my question.
That feeds into
Jam,
victimhood culture.
Jam, here's my question though. If you're gonna Jam, I have a question. Yeah. So if you're gonna leave it up to the individual of how they feel because somebody said something, don't you think that you're gonna get a lot of different interpretations of what racism is? And how people feel about it? Wouldn't you say that you need to have a clear definition? Because you said the act.
Which is why I did not say that it's solely based on how a person interprets it.
Sure. Then what is? But you just made a whole argument about that. Because you're black, you have the authority to tell other people of other races to say, because I'm black, the anti-black racism. I'm more of an authority figure to tell you what it is than you are.
Because Jake, there's many black people on earth who would tell you.
Sure, and there's many black people on earth that would disagree with you.
Hold on a second. Even the most conservative of black people, especially living in America or the UK, even the most conservative. In fact, we have polls. I can produce polls here of statistics and studies that have been done when black people have been polled.
Sure, and they're being
let me finish my point. And have been asked, have you ever been a victim of anti-black racism? And they've been in 90%.
What's the definition of anti-black racism?
It could be a variety of things. It could be discriminatory practices.
So Jam, what about the trans community?
Language.
Let's say the trans community, because I hear this argument when it comes to liberals. The trans community says you shouldn't have an opinion on trans people because you're not trans yourself, or the gays will say you shouldn't have an opinion because you're not gay. Now, when gay people say that's discrimination, the church is discriminating against me because they're anti-gay and they're anti-this, and they say that. So because they're homosexuals or because they're trans, would you say that they have more of an authority over Christians or other people, regardless of whatever, Muslims, whatever you want to say, do you say that they have more of an authority over other people because they're transsexuals?
If we're talking about how it is to be a gay, someone that's gay or transsexual,
well, they were discriminated against. So,
it's not about
would you say that they have more of authority then to say what that is?
To say what anti-LGBT
is?
Yes, they do.
They do. So their right to protest like Chick-fil-A.
Because they're more, whether you agree with it or not, this is the fact.
Mm-hmm.
They do because they're more likely to experience it. And this,
Okay.
I want to make this point too.
Gotcha.
I'm not saying that. I'm not based on what you said. Just based on what you said right now.
Oh, let him finish, Damon. Let him finish, and you can respond. Yeah. I'll be done. With that.
This is the important part. This is the very important part. I'm not saying that no one has a right to have an opinion on anything. That's not my argument. I'm saying that if you're talking about two groups of people, you're sure you can have an opinion. You can have a view. You can have an opinion.
I agree, but the one that has a better opinion, right?
The person that is more likely to experience the behavior
has a better opinion.
Has much more. No, as a more valid.
Or more valid, which is better. Yeah, it's more valid, more believable.
More valid because of the fact that they've experienced it more.
Gotcha. That's just like the gay, etc. And it gets really
polluted. And that includes someone that's gay too.
Okay, cool.
Okay, hold on. Hassan has a question. Hassan, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think maybe Damien may have asked this before, or you commented on it. So if I was on a podcast, for example, if I was on this podcast, although you did actually mention it, and somebody was to call me the N-word, and then they would go on to clarify the fact that there are a variety of Black people and a large proportion of our N-words, how would that not be racism?
Sorry, could you just repeat
that
early part? If you were
sure. So if I was
just explain the whole story, Hassan. You don't have to bite around the bush, bro. Well, I'm here.
The questions for Damon. So
yeah.
So
don't bite around the bush, bro.
Not everything. Not everything's about you, Jake.
Guys, let Hassan speak.
Yeah. So Damon, yeah. So if I was on this podcast now, and I was to be referred to using a racial slur, and then the person would go on and define that the majority of Black people are racial slurs, would that not be racism?
Well, again, this is exactly, and I will answer the question. This is exactly why I was asking earlier on. If somebody calls me a racial slur, is that racist? Okay. And the reason why I was trying to get to, is it based on how I'm feeling? Is it based on their intent? Is it neither one of those things, as in could be something else, or is it both of those things? Now, the reason why I was trying to get to that point is because if you are going to put it solely on how I feel, which is kind of the danger of what, and I'm not saying that JM is saying that that's the case, but it's kind of the danger of what JM gave in his recent answer here, is that certain people are more of an authority if it's something that affects them. If that's the case, then what you're creating is you're creating a system whereby you say to somebody, hey, you're a minority group, you're being targeted here, people are being racist towards you. And if they disagree with you, you have the authority because you're the person who it affects, right? So you know more about it than they do. You're more understanding of how this racism affects you than how it affects them. And therefore, we're going to take your word over anyone else's because yours carries more validity and weight to it. The danger there is that you create a system which is open to abuse. And it can lead into victimhood culture because it's a power that you have. Let's not beat around the bush. In today's world, victimhood is a currency, it's a power. You can cancel people with it, you can get them sacked, you can move through the ranks and progress to positions of power within your working environment. It's a bullet in a gun that you can aim and point at anyone just based on the virtue of what skin color you have. What you said offended me. Well, no, I didn't mean it that way. Tough shit. I'm the authority on whether it's racist or not. You're not. It hurt my feelings, and now I'm going to cancel your life.
Okay,
but
Damon,
now,
Damon,
if that's
Damon,
sorry,
Damon, Damon, hold on a second, Damon. Hassan is a nigger.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So here's the thing.
Hold on a second, Damon.
No, is that racist or not?
Is that let's say I'm a white person
The only way.
And I call Hassan a nigger, and then Hassan tells me, "Do you mind not calling me that, please?" And then I continue to call him to his face, "You're a nigger." Is that racist?
Right. So this is what I'm trying to say now. If we have to look at, if we admit that the fact is that it's based on the person who's hearing it, then Hassan has the power to say, yes, that's racism, right? That's racism.
No,
Hassan
I'm
has the
talking
power.
about objectively speaking.
No. Yeah.
So objectively speaking, if you were to witness that, in real life, a white person calling a black person a nigger,
Yeah.
and then the
he's saying, don't say that to me. And he says it again.
Do you mind not addressing me in that manner?
Yeah.
And then he carries on saying it.
And he does it again. And he does it again.
Hold on.
Does it again.
You are a spectator. You're observing. Okay, you don't know how anyone feels in this situation.
It's simple. It's racism. Sure.
Hold on. Is it racism or not?
Okay.
Because otherwise, we don't have a definition for racism. Nothing can be racist then.
Sorry,
no.
Sorry, Damon. I just want to add one variable to one Octavio. Octavio, if you don't mind, can I add one variable to what you're saying?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's you're a nigger, and then don't call me a nigger. Well, you are a nigger. Well, why am I a nigger? Well, because niggers are this and niggers are that, and so on and so forth. So it's the qualifier that confirms not necessarily just feeling, but an established perception or why the word is being used, because that's an important factor as well. It's not just I am offended.
Well,
so
what are those factors though, Hassan? Is he saying, "Oh, you're a nigger because niggers are this and niggers are that"? What are those factors? Is it based purely on skin color? Or is it because of actions, perhaps?
Sure. In all fairness, though, it's. I just wanted to add that part. So before Damon.
Well, you gotta clarify what's this and what's that.
Not necessarily to you. I just wanted to add that to Damon before Damon.
Okay,
answered.
well then, Damon, you can ask if you want to clarify on that.
Go ahead, Damon.
To be honest, I didn't fully understand that last part.
Okay,
so, you don't have to clarify, but if you can just at least repeat it.
Okay, so Octavio presented the scenario of a person is referred to the N-word, and then the person says, "Don't call me by the N-word," and then the person says, "Well, why are you referring to me by the N-word? Because that's a derogatory term." And then there's a clarification of the majority of people that would come under your skin color deserve this slur because this is.
He's deliberately using it as a slur, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So I would say, and this isn't a strict answer, most of the time it would be safe to assume if you just see this happening as a regular exchange on a street, it could be safe to assume that is racism. That's an example of racism. But I'm going to ask you a question. Can you see that there's a potential that it could be something else? Okay.
No.
Because so for example, and I'm going to give you an example here. I work in the healthcare industry, right? I was going to work and I saw what looked like somebody that was a bike crash victim. I run over and straight away I know like what I have to do. I'm running over there and I get involved because I think I need to do ALS. I need to do an immediate assessment of the guy. I need to see if I need to give CPR or anything like that. I run over and then all of a sudden I have people shouting at me. And I fucked up a film shoot, which was being done outside the hospital because they were basically filming something for an educational video. I didn't see any of the cameras because basically they were trying to get away with filming without having a license. So that's another little issue. But they had somebody in the corner with like a little handy cam. So it didn't look like a big professional shoot thing. But straight away, I just thought, shit, there's an accident here. And I went in there and I messed it up. Now, situations aren't always what we assume they could be. Okay. Now, you might think, well, that's like a 1 in a million thing, but it's just one example of something else that it could be. And especially in...
What point did you just try to make there? You didn't even finish your argument.
It sounds like...
I'm basically saying, what would happen? What would happen if that was basically somebody rehearsing something?
What?
What if somebody was
Damon.
Two people are talking over each other.
Oh, come on, man.
Hold on. No. Hang on a sec.
Hold on,
Wait a
Damon.
second.
Come on,
Yeah.
man.
By that logic, would you agree that anything can be anything?
No, I'm not agreeing that anything could be anything. I'm saying that it's important that we understand fully what it is that you're actually witnessing. Because how many times have you seen, and I've asked somebody this example before, how many times have you seen in a shopping store, right? A kid wants to buy something, a kid wants some sweets, he wants a cereal, he wants whatever. The mum's like, no, you can't do it. Leave that alone. Put that back, right? The kid gets angry and he says, I hate you. I hope you die, or something like that. Have you ever seen a kid say something like, I hate you to his parents?
I would have got a slap.
I would have gotten a slap too.
I would have got beaten.
I've never said it myself because I was
Even
raised not to say
thinking
it
I
that way,
could-
but I've heard
Even
it.
thinking it, I would have got beaten.
But have you heard people saying it? I've heard people saying it in shops all the time.
Yeah, the new age kids, spoiled kids. Yeah, I've heard
Right,
it.
but hang a second.
But
What
the answer is yes.
when you see a kid say that, if you understand the kid, because some of these scenarios, I knew the kids who said it. I knew the kids. I knew the parents. I saw the kids, and I saw the kids saying it. Right? Do you think that when a kid says that, he means it?
In that moment, yes, he does. He really hates.
Does he
his
mean
mom.
it? Does he mean it?
He
Or
means
does
it in that
he-
moment.
Guys, I'm gonna bring
No,
this
no,
back.
no, no.
This is
Listen.
this is becoming like mind numbing. I don't know what
No,
they were
okay, fine.
saying. Hold
Okay,
on.
fine. Here's
Bro, I don't know what.
so-
hold on, bro. I don't know what you think the point you're making, but you have
The
just
point-
been speaking. Hold on, you've been speaking for 5 minutes.
Oh,
You
don't
haven't-
shout over me.
You haven't said anything. You're just talking for the sake of it.
Well, how about you
what I'm
stop
going to
being
do now?
narrow-minded?
I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk.
Look, okay, JM, grow a brain for a second.
Bro,
I'm
I'm
trying
going
to
to
figure
talk
out
to
how
you.
this
You just
factors into the discussion that we're having.
Guys,
Shut
come
up.
on.
Listen,
You're not saying anything. You're not saying anything, Jake.
Hassan,
I'm going to just to
Hassan,
Jake.
my
I'm going
point
to just to
is,
Jake what we're
stop
talking
being
about.
an ignorant idiot, man.
Jake,
Just
Jake,
listen for a second.
Damon,
Let
right.
JM address me. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
bro.
Let's get to it instead of flipping waffling, Jake.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
You
okay,
are
I
too dumb.
understand that
I'm
you
telling you
called
right now.
Hassan a nigger.
That's not true.
You made the references to black people who were rioting as niggers.
Those
I
are
want
niggas.
to ask you a question.
Mhm.
So, if you saw a group of white people behaving, let's say, so in this country, for example, I made the analogy in this country. We have hooliganism. We have white men that go out on a Saturday night. They fight. They cause chaos. They very violent, antisocial.
Yeah.
Comes in, they smash up shops and stuff.
Sounds like a bunch of honky trailer trash people.
Okay,
Yeah. Trailer, white trailer
so-
trash. You know
okay. So would it be appropriate for me
that? Mhm.
to see that behavior and say, look at those and use those words you use? Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, because they're
Okay.
criminals. They're doing criminal acts. Why do you sympathize for criminals? Like, what does it matter if they're criminals? What does it matter by calling them names?
Hold on a second. So the words you've used to describe white people.
Honkies, crackers, white trailer trash. Yeah.
So let's take the H word you've used.
Honky.
Is that
sure.
synonymous with criminal behavior?
That what?
Is that synonymous with criminal behavior?
Sure.
Is that what the word was created for?
The word was created for a slur to white people. Sure.
Yeah,
I'm telling.
but was it for criminal behavior? Is what I'm asking, specifically for criminal behavior.
Yeah, it's just a slur. Like with everything in the world, we have slurs like chinks.
Whether or not it was for criminal behavior, that's very important.
Yeah, but again, when you look at criminals, and like I said before, the 52% of people that are black that are murdering people, wouldn't you say that?
Point that you're making, Jake. He's missing the point that you're making.
I'll give you a better example, Jake. So we know that
you're not. You're not giving.
We know. I'll give you a better example.
You're not making
we know, for example, that there's derogatory words for Jewish people. One that begins with the K word. I don't know if you.
What's the K word? I don't know. What's
we know there's a word that begins with K that is derogatory for Jewish people. Okay.
What?
Does everybody know what I'm talking about? The K word.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Cunt.
Okay.
What is
it?
No.
Okay. Now, let's say you saw a bunch of Jewish people acting very unruly. Do you think that word would be appropriate for me to use to describe them because they're acting in antisocial?
Well, one, I don't know the word, but if I saw a bunch of Jewish people, they look like white people, so I just call them a bunch of white trailer trash.
Okay.
But if I knew they were Jewish, yeah, I'd probably use the word. Doesn't matter.
So basically, what you're
James
hold on.
James
So
trying to
basically, hold on.
basically
So
say
basically,
if
your
it's possible to
so
justify
basically your
using racial
position,
slurs,
Jake. So basically, Jake, your
it's a
position
long-winded
is
way.
if you see any group of people that happen to be of a specific race
Mhm.
acting in an antisocial way, there's justification.
Criminals,
using-
yeah.
No,
Because I
let
don't
me
care about
finish.
criminals' feelings.
Let him
Question.
finish. Bro.
Mhm.
Any person that is acting in a criminal manner,
Yeah.
there's justification for using racial slurs.
Yeah, because who cares about their feelings? Do you care about criminals' feelings?
It's not about their feelings, bro. I don't think you
So then
understand.
why are you so hung up about calling them niggers or sticks or trailer trash?
It's a
One
simple
could
question.
almost say it's
I'm
victimhood.
asking
It's
you.
victimhood, bro. Why are you
I'm not-
sympathizing for criminals?
I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Hold
Bro,
on.
I'm not saying it's
Oh,
right or wrong.
okay.
I'm
So
asking-
then ask.
Jake,
So let me
Jake,
ask
I'm
you:
not
is it
saying
right or
it's
wrong
right
to
or
say
wrong.
that?
I'm
Jake,
asking you a
Jake,
question.
was the word nigger created? Was the word nigger created because black people were a bunch of criminals?
No, it was for a slur, just like any other race.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what
So
has
what?
that got to do with? Why would you use that slur?
So for example, here in our
To talk
culture,
about a bunch of
we
protesters. If
so
the slur
so-
was not created for
so
criminals,
here in our I'll explain it. So here in our culture, for example, Chris Rock said the same thing that I did, where and even the black community they think the same way. You a nigga. Remember, rap music says this all the time. It's in our culture where we can acknowledge that we have people that are doing degenerate acts that are criminals, and they say that's a nigger. Now, there's a difference between a nigger and a black person. For example, Denzel Washington is just a black American. He's not a nigger. Okay. It's not because of the skin color. It's because of how you contribute to society. And racial slurs are on the table if you're committing crimes. It doesn't
So why
matter
did
because
you
I don't
call
care
her
about
sad one
I don't care about a person
So why
a
did you call her
criminal's
sad one
feelings.
then?
So why do
call her
you
sad
care
one?
about a criminal's feelings?
No,
Jay?
why
What
did
does
you
it
call
matter?
her sad one? Why did you call her sad one then?
I think I can answer that because Jake.
No, Hassan. No, it's important that he answers that.
Okay.
Why did you call her sad? Was the man committing crimes when you crushed him?
I didn't call him a nigger.
Oh, well, that's what Octavia said.
That's what they said. Did you see the video? When in that video did I say, Hassan, you are a nigger? When did I say that?
You said it repeatedly.
No, I didn't.
repeatedly.
No, I didn't. Okay. We have it on camera.
Guys, can we just move for a second?
Hold on,
into something else?
Damon, did I ever say, Hassan, you are a nigger? Did I ever say that?
I know you explained to me that you didn't. I honestly, I'm
We'll
not.
ju-
It's
we'll
not
just
that I'm
have
not
to
trying
do
to
a
take sides. I
reaction to
haven't
it.
seen.
I asked him a
I
question,
don't
bro.
remember watching the video. I will watch the video back again. Whatever happens, we can post it in the chat. We can come back to this.
Fair enough.
But look, I think that I know you explained that you done. I think you said that you were misheard or you said something else. But
Yeah.
I
So
don't
during
know.
the video,
All of them
when
what can I just say what that looked like to me, right?
go for it.
Go ahead.
The thing is that the reason why I was giving the previous example to say that like you need to understand what the intent is, and when a kid says that he hates his mum, whatever, people will say things to attack you if you provoke them, and sometimes they'll say mean and nasty shit. Now,
Yeah.
here's the thing: we've heard Rashid defend Jake, say he's not a racist. I've seen Jake. And I haven't seen any actual racism. Now, even if he called Hassan that word, I would be more inclined to believe that this was yes, it's a racist word. Yes, it's a racially charged word. But
Sure.
the question that I was asking when I gave the options to JM before about is it this, is it that, is it both, what is it? The reason is that you need to understand what type of person are you when you look at how you believe racism is. Do you think that somebody who just says or does one thing that can be interpreted as racist, does that make them a racist? Or can they be a person who said something racist? Not necessarily that they are racist, but they're a person who said something that's racist. Now, here's the thing. If you look at it that way, you can understand that maybe somebody isn't racist. They see someone, this person's pissing them off a lot. They want to hurt their feelings. They don't know how to hurt their feelings. They're a strong person. They've got no weaknesses really, but they've got a chip on their shoulder when it comes to racism. So they're going to call them that. If I see somebody who pisses me off and he's a short guy and he's got short man syndrome, I'll dig into that. If I see somebody who's ginger and they've got issues about that, I'll dig into that. This is all attacking somebody.
What would you do if they're black, Damon? What would you do if they're black?
I wouldn't do that, but not because I'm afraid of using that word in terms of thinking that it might make me racist. I wouldn't do that because I live in a culture where if somebody's got me on tape saying that, I'll lose my job. So the thing that for me is, the fact is for me, if you're going to discriminate on somebody based on why is racism so bad? Racism is so bad because you're discriminating against somebody, or you're trying to hurt somebody's feelings based on an aspect that they have no control over. You can't help it if you're born black. I can't help it if I was born white. If somebody attacks us, persecutes us, discriminates against us, which I've lived through myself, right? If you're looking at racism as being something that's ethnicity based, I was in 2 wars, a civil war, and there was ethnic cleansing going on because of my group of people and what heritage I have. So yes, I had to hide in buckets. Yes, I saw tanks rolling down the streets. Yes, I was shot at. So I understand that thing. The fact that one person might be black and one person might be pink or blue or yellow or pink or whatever color. The thing is we all know some kind of persecution one way or another, but we've lent a lot of power to the argument of racism. Just because you're born like this, you have no control of it. So how is that different to hating somebody because they're ginger or because they're tall or because they're short or because of whatever? We've picked this one thing. And yes, you can say, but if you look at the history, that's why you know that's more important, right? Nowhere in history were ginger people sold into lifelong bondage. Nowhere in history were ginger people told, we'll arrest you if you're at a bus stop or a train station, or if you want to cross state lines. Yeah, I get that. There's a history tied to it, but can you accept we've moved forward from that? Can you accept we have equality laws now? Can you accept that if we look at this thing, society has moved forward. The West has moved forward further than anywhere else. Okay, you live in, is it Scotland you live in?
Oh, UK, bro. UK.
Where is it that I thought I heard you gave an example about Scotland. I thought you said
he didn't live there, but he tried to make it seem like, oh, there's policies of
poverty.
I
thought you said where I am when you referred to that story in Scotland. No. Okay, fine. So if would you classify yourself as British?
Black British, yeah.
Okay, right. So, but the British were the first people to outlaw slavery before America did. America did it shortly after, right? So you're going to say that you've got slavery here, like you've still got, what is it, 5 million slaves in Africa today? But you're saying that like, there's systemic racism.
Don't straw man again.
No, it's true. There's slavery all around the world. Slavery still exists.
Okay, don't straw man. He's already started to straw man. I'm going to say.
How have I straw man?
What's the straw man?
Did you not say that we've got systemic racism here?
I knew straight away he was going to refer to slavery and slavery in Africa, and then say I'm going to say such and such.
Took 3 hours, but okay.
Because you said systemic racism is here. You said systemic racism.
It is here, and it's not just me that says it.
No, so
yeah, it's liberals that say that. Sure.
How have you strawmanned it? How have I strawmanned it when I said that you said?
Guys, can you admit that that both can be true? That slavery still exists today and racism still exists today? Can you admit that?
I'm not doubting that racism exists. 100% racism exists.
And slavery exists today. I do agree with that statement.
And slavery exists. Yeah. And slavery exists in the countries that are slavery doesn't exist in the countries that are being told that they're the most racist.
Now hold on, we were talking about Jake though, because what I was pointing.
We can continue that if you want. That's
no. Because what I was pointing out, I don't know everything that I'm not in Jake's body. I don't know what Jake thinks.
Look, the stuff that Jake.
Hold on, David.
You talk about me like you do, though. That's weird.
Hold on, Damon. But what I observed on that live, I would consider that to be racism. Yes, definitely.
Well, here's what I'd observe. I'd observe it that he used racially charged language. The words that he was saying was racist words. I don't think he's a racist. I think that he was doing it because he knew that it was going to provoke a reaction and it was going to expose the fact that people who act like racism is the biggest thing, the most important thing, the most hurtful thing ever. When they hear him say the word again and again and again and again and again, they're just going to grow up and be normal guys.
But hold on, Damon. The people that were on the live, it was me and Hassan, and we were having a midnight coffee live. So if that comment was aimed at, if that comment was aimed at JM was not present there. I do not talk about race. I do not mention.
Still triggered him though, obviously.
I do not call race. I do not call people racist lightly. I would never do that. even though I have been through racism, real racism. But the thing is, I would never ever use that word lightly against anyone. But
Okay.
what I'm saying is, I'm not. You can make that argument, but it doesn't change the fact that what was observed to me was racism.
Okay, let me just give one little defense to Jake. And first of all, the defense that I'm giving of him isn't at all taken away from what you said. What you said, I can understand why you think that, and I agree that oftentimes that can be the case. The thing is, um, I was chased through 4 villages. I ran until I had literally blisters on every single foot, and I had my toenails falling out. I had to hide in bomb shelters. I got shot at twice by people sniping in the car that I was in. I had people who wanted to hang me that I had to run away from. I've been through that stuff. I've got a friend who unfortunately got disabled. He had half his face blown off by a grenade that was thrown to his bedroom window. I've seen this
Damon,
shit.
you
I've
probably
been through
deserved
that
it because
stuff.
you're a honky.
I know. Jesus
You deserved it
Christ,
because you're a
man.
honky
Yeah, I
and you're a
know,
cracker.
man. And do you know how the worst racism that I've suffered is that the sun disproportionately affects me than it does anyone else because I just burn so easily. But anyway, regardless to all of that, what I'm trying to say is
Mm.
when I felt all of those things, the people that were doing it were the people who they never called me a cracker, they never called me a honky, they never called me a racial slur. In fact, they acted leading up to this stuff like my best friends. They acted like they were doing me favors. The institutions that were enabling it were acting like they were reaching out to give me the best quality of life and everything else. They promise you the world. And we've seen that elsewhere. We've seen that with the Democrat Party, how that was started. We've seen that with LBJ. We've seen that with, oh, look, do you want the police in your neighborhoods? After you scare people and terrify them into thinking that the police are the very big enemy, and they're like, no, we don't want them. Okay, we'll help get rid of them. And that's how you have the ghettos get born. Like anybody who's trying to promise you one thing, like, and they're promising you the world, like those are the people that usually going to stab you in the back. The people that hate you, the people that really hate you, aren't going to come up to your face and tell you they hate you. That's a very stupid way to go about life.
Okay, guys, listen.
Can I respond?
We're gonna need to do the final thoughts now because we've reached 3 hours. It's been absolutely amazing. Damon, finish your point, bro. And then let Hassan respond, and then let's go into final.
I agree with a lot of things that JM pointed out. I think that all of these examples, we see that. I think that we need to understand that just because you have unequal outcomes doesn't mean that you have that you don't have equality and that you don't have equal opportunity. And I don't think that it's an example of racism. It could be racism. Do I believe that racist people exist in systems? Yes, I do. I believe that there's racist people who might be in systems of, let's say, healthcare, education, police, that can all be that. But to call that systemic racism is bullshit. That's just racism. That's racism. You have racist people in the world. That's racism. To say we're going to call it something else because it exists in a system is just trying to create a bullshit term to scare people, to make it seem like it's bigger than it is. Institutional racism has been eliminated. We have equality laws. There's no such policies that exist other than, as Jake pointed out, affirmative action and things that actually benefit minority groups and discriminate against majorities in predominantly white countries. So systemic racism is a myth. It's complete bullshit. It doesn't exist. And all of the examples that JM provided only show that people are different and you can have different outcomes. It doesn't prove that it's because of racism. And saying we found a racist police officer who did a racist stop and search, again, all as you've proven is that a person within the police force is racist, not that there's actually racist policies, true, actual institutional racism that exists within those institutions. There's no rules, there's no laws, there's no practices that promote this behavior. It's just a few people who may in themselves be racist. And I agree with that, and I don't deny that that exists. But all JM proved to me is that we have racism. Yeah, racism is real. Nobody's denying that. Don't make it out to be this big monster, this big scary thing, just so that political people can pull off their agenda and try and claim more governmental power and overreach. That's a dangerous way of life.
So yeah, thanks for that, Damon. Hassan, yeah, can you give your reply and your final thoughts, please?
Sure. So I just the reason I gave the example of somebody using the N-word being very clearly racist is not necessarily defined by my feelings or a person's feelings. That could be a factor, but it's not the overwhelming factor in that scenario. In that scenario that I gave that we all know.
Have you guys ever asked? Sorry, have you ever asked Jake if he is racist or not? Have you ever asked him?
I never thought of asking him. I think
Never thought of asking.
Jake, are you racist?
No.
Okay. Okay, Hassan, yeah, go on.
Okay, so I would say Jake is racist because I've heard him say on more than one occasion. Well, I've heard him say today that 52% of black people commit crimes, which is a
fact. Yeah.
52% of black people commit crimes.
52% of black people in
52%
America.
of crime. 52% of crime in America is committed by black people.
No. That's 52% of murders are committed by black people. 37% of all violent crimes are committed by black people.
Sure. So then he goes on to use that example, that variable, to define that by definition, black people are. It's appropriate to refer to black people as N-words because a majority of them are criminals. 52%.
I didn't say majority. Didn't say majority.
Guys, please don't interrupt us.
You have said that. You have said that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Jake, you can clarify on your own time.
I can give you the video evidence for that as well. So you can deny it as you wish. So it is possible that a person could say I'm not racist and be racist. So that example of, well, there may not be laws in place that are racist, but in practicality, the laws may need to be changed because people can misrepresent themselves, be dishonest essentially, right? And it's the amount of examples are unlimited in the US, for example, in the police force. So there's a variety of examples. So you don't necessarily need to go to the laws to find how there's flaws in the system, and there may be systematic racism. There's a lot of evidence for that. But I'll let you guys carry on.
Can I just, before you go, Hassan, can I just ask you something? Actually, everyone, I think it's probably the most important question.
Go ahead.
Do you, sorry, with what you said there, first of all, with what Jake said, I think from what he said today, I didn't hear fully the other video. I think he said that he doesn't care about using that slur only for the criminals, though. So, like, I don't think he would call all black people in America criminals just because 52% of the violent crimes are committed by them. I think he would only refer to as the criminals who are doing those violent crimes by those slurs.
Yeah, but Damon, I don't think those, for example, the example that he used was people protesting. They were protesters behaving badly. They're not niggers. To me, I wouldn't use that slur. If I see,
I wouldn't use that slur, and I'm not defending the use of that slur.
I wouldn't.
They were just behaving badly. They were just rioting. They were setting buildings on fires. They were stealing. They're just behaving badly, Damon. They weren't criminals. They're protesters. Fuck out of here, bro.
What about the Antifa that were doing it? What were they? Antifa, what were they?
No, but wait.
They're a bunch of fucking. They're a bunch of communists that also, again, the BLM, the people that are rioting, also believe in communism.
Where's the racist slur? Most Antifa members are white, so where's the racist slur for them?
Trailer trash, honkies, whatever you want to call them. They're a bunch of honkies. The difference is that you get offended by that. I just call Damon a honky. Damon,
bro,
you're a honky.
You don't refer. You're referring to them now because we pushed you to it. But when you're having general discussion, you don't refer to white people you don't like with pejorative racist language. You don't do it.
Yeah, because they're not criminals. Why would I?
No, I said, okay, any white Antifa, for example. You don't refer to Antifa.
They're a bunch of criminals. Language. Yes, they're a bunch of honkies. They're a bunch of trailer trash. They're whatever slur you want to put on them. I don't care.
You're only doing that now. You don't do that in general speak. You don't do it.
No, you don't.
You only use racial language.
Okay. So, do you want me to make a video about how these guys are honkies? What do you want me to do?
No, I don't want you to do anything. I don't want you to do anything.
Okay, good. Then why are you criticizing me?
I'm highlighting to you that you only use pejorative racial language against black people that you consider.
How?
Because that's what you do.
You said it.
Again, the majority of people that commit crimes. Violent crimes is blacks.
That's not the point.
It's not white people. In fact, In fact,
That's
if you
the
look at
point.
black
And
and white
majority of
crime,
crimes in
if you look
America
at
are
black and
committed
white
by white
crime,
people.
black people kill white
Per
people way
capita-
more than white
per
people killing
capita-
blacks.
Jake,
Guys,
that's not the point. You're
guys,
still
just one,
is what he's actually saying. Go ahead.
guys,
Yeah.
can I just, going back to the question I wanted to ask Hassan,
Yeah.
and this goes for all of you. Hassan, do you
Yep.
think that just because somebody says something racist,
Mhm.
that they are racist?
Yeah,
This
he
is
already made that clear. He does believe that.
Jake, are you answering for me? Is it because you think you can speak for black people? Is that what it is, Jake?
Yeah, I can speak for
No,
black
No,
people.
let's
I
stop
can
this.
speak
Let's
for
stop
you
this.
because you've already
Let's just
stated
be
it.
genuinely. Let's just try to answer, please. Sorry, Hassan,
I
go ahead.
would like to answer, but Jake feels the need to answer for me.
Ooh,
So,
I feel
so
you.
your question is just to make sure I've understood your question correctly. Just because somebody uses a racial slur, that means they're racist. Does that mean that they're racist?
Yeah. Would you mean that would you believe that they are in themselves inherently is that a racist person just because they said something racist?
This is my issue with. I'll answer your question, but I don't like the question because, in reality, it would be appropriate thing to do is to ask them why, and if they go on to clarify, which in most cases they do, that yes, inherently black people or whatever racial slur that they're using, it's appropriate to use that term because of X, Y factors. Then it's safe to assume that they are racist.
So do you
because
think?
So,
Do you think?
there you go. I guessed it correctly.
To answer your question, Damon.
Okay.
To answer it. Is it
Yeah,
fair
that-
to assume that person
sorry.
is racist? Is it fair to assume a person's racist? Is it fair to assume the person's racist because he used racial slurs? Yes.
Yeah, I answered your
Okay.
question already.
So
yeah,
I just want to bring it up. Like if that's how you believe it, if that's what you think, then that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that with the example that you guys have brought up now with the video with Jake and everything.
Yeah.
Call me stupid. Call me, say that I just want to believe in the best in people, whatever. Okay, fine. I honestly think that what was probably going on is because of previous beef, because of previous arguments, which have gotten pretty heated, that he was just trying to piss you off. He was just trying to provoke you. And I don't think it was meant, I don't think he actually has these racist ideals in him. I don't think that, because if I did believe that, I don't think he would have given, like Rashid said, a platform to the people he gave. I don't think he would be here having a pretty civil discourse with Octavia, with JM, with yourself. I don't think he'd be doing that if he was a racist.
But to be fair, Damon, two things. One, in terms of clarifying my response, when I hear hoofs, right, I don't think zebras, I think horses. When you saw a person needing medical aid, you didn't think this is a movie set. You thought immediately a person needs medical aid. So
yeah.
Past experience does affect the person's judgment. That's one. Two, do I think? Oh, Damon, please, Damon.
Sorry.
Thank you. Do I think he was trying to piss me off? Yes, because I've gotten under his skin on many occasions, and I'm quite.
no, you haven't.
Yeah, sure, I haven't.
No, you have not.
Okay, let's Jake for a second. Let's hear him out.
Yeah. Thirdly, you did say yourself that a person who is your enemy, who will attack you, won't necessarily make it clear, and they'll put the best of intentions, and they'll present a best face. They'll let you, as you said in your example, these are those people that stabbed you in the back, presented themselves to you as friends. Does that not apply in Jake's case? Just because he lets me on the podcast and he speaks civilly and he's invited,
it very much could.
Doesn't necessarily mean that he has good intentions and he's not going to stab us in the back later on. By your own example.
I do believe that could be the case. I 100% agree that could be the case. And like I said,
does it not?
It could be the case that he's playing this long game where he actually really wants to sabotage you and he is a racist. It could be the case. That definitely could be the case. But all I'm saying is that I think that because of the weight that accusing somebody of being a racist carries behind it, like Octavio says, he wouldn't do it easily. I think that because of that, we owe it to somebody to first try to at least like give the benefit of the doubt and judge by future behavior. What he said was hurtful. Yes, the using the words, it is a racially charged word. It is a racist word. It is that thing. But I think that, like, look, you survived. You're here today. So did JM. So like we were taught when I was a kid.
Damon,
when I was yeah.
Sorry, can I just ask you a question? You've watched the video, right?
I'll tell you what,
he didn't see the whole thing.
Honestly, hand on my heart, I didn't see the whole thing. I did watch it. I was watching it, but at the
Okay,
same
okay,
time, I
Damon,
was
Damon,
responding to
I
messages
want
of
you.
doing
No,
other
no,
stuff.
this is not. I'm not trying to like catch you out or anything.
No, I'm not saying that you are.
What I'm trying to do is, I want you to watch it. All right, and
will.
like I said, I don't accuse people of race. I don't call people racists lightly. All right. I want you to watch it and make up your own mind. I'm not going to influence you. I'm not going to tell you what I think and so on and so forth. You go and watch it. Watch what? Don't you just have to watch that bit, okay? Or the bit when Jake comes on, and
Yeah.
you know, just
It's about 20 minutes long, bro. Just watch that whole content.
watch that, and then you make up your own mind as to what you think it is.
Can I just
say
ask you
something?
though?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I can guarantee you this. If in the couple of weeks I've known Jake, if I had constantly referred or when I refer to black people, white people casually with racial epithets, I guarantee Jake would have labeled me as racist. Guarantee. Because you know why I know that? Because you labeled me, you and your friends labeled me as one.
How?
Simply because you guys believed I was some kind of affiliation with Black Lives Matter.
Nope.
That's what came out with the situation
Wrong.
with Hassan getting roped into it. So who was the racist then, Jake? Who was being labeled as racist?
Oh, here's the thing. If you want to bring up that concept, I never agree with OJ. OJ has his own mind. He said,
we can always play the video.
Yeah,
but again,
JM just admitted that OJ was talking about him. So obviously JM doesn't believe that OJ was talking about Hassan. So let's talk about you, bro. So yeah, in that video, which we have about you backing up George Floyd, we have a debate on that. You were saying no, George Floyd was murdered by a white man. We had a debate on it.
I never said that. I said he was murdered by a policeman.
He was murdered by Derek Chauvin. Yes, I know that. Yeah, and I was telling you, no, he OD'd. He had a massive amount of, and I labeled all the things. Bunch of drugs.
All right, let's go on. Let's move on, Jay.
Okay, cool. So yes, there's a lot of context there to where he was thinking, okay, you know what? This guy perhaps is for BLM. He doesn't know the full context, but we know that the people that support BLM are racist individuals. They're racist. They're black supremacists. These are racist people. Can you agree on that?
Some of them are, yeah. I've heard racism.
All of them are. So, okay. So real quick. So when OJ's thinking, okay, this guy likes George Floyd.
Sorry to cut you off. Rashid, can you copy what that question is and post it up so we can see it here? Because I can't open the chat. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So when you're basically backing up George Floyd, who other people are backing him up that are racist black people, it sounds like to OJ, which I disagreed. I said, no, that's not the case. He's pro-black. Perhaps I gave you the benefit of the doubt. I was like, no, he's not racist. And until this day, I don't think you're racist. OJ's thinking, no, he might be a little racist. And that's what it was. And we got it confused with Hassan. And you can agree on that. Although Hassan disagrees and Octavio disagrees, that's fine. But at least you're reasonable. And you can think, yeah, you guys were talking about me. Fair enough. But at the end of the day, yeah, we don't actually think that you're racist in any shape or form. I told you in that video, and I said, OJ, no, he's not a racist. This is stupid. This is a dumb argument based off of that one debate.
Since you had met me, every time in a lot of my instances when I referred to white people, I used derogatory language, racial derogatory language to describe whites, or let's say Mexicans even.
Yeah,
if I started just using racial language towards Mexican and referring to you just randomly in that way, you wouldn't consider me to be racist.
No,
I don't believe you.
Well, I would have to hold on, Damon.
I don't believe that.
Just let me. That's fine. You don't have to believe it. But the point is that there's a very high standard on racism. When it comes to racism, you're basing your supremacy off of skin color. Okay. So again, here in the United States or in the West in general, we are the most tolerant when it comes to race. There's very little racism based off that definition here in the West. So because there's it's because it's so slim, because the fact that racism is on fucking, it's in a coma right now. There's very little of it. If you look at the Ku Klux Klan or the white supremacists, there's literally like maybe 500 people that are in that group compared to the 320 plus million people here in the United States. It's a fucking fraction, dude. fraction of a fraction of people. So I'm gonna fucking say, well, based off the stats, based off of what I've seen, yeah, the odds are JM's not racist. Who cares? And I'll move on. It's really not that.
Your position is you don't see using racial epithets as a sign of racism,
No.
or even inappropriate. You don't even think it's even inappropriate, do you?
It doesn't fucking matter.
I mean, that's your view. That's your view.
I have a question for Jake.
Guys, come on.
I thought we were doing last thoughts, bro. But
Yeah,
you go for it, Hassan.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Are the majority of black people in America criminals?
No.
Okay,
Based off the stats, no.
You've said in one of your videos that the majority of the black people protested.
Which video?
So the video was a video that was put in the chat about the Brittany Griner.
Okay, so I said there that the majority of black people are criminals.
The majority. So would you describe rioters during the BLM riots as criminals?
Yes, they're rioting. They're committing crimes.
Majority
they're
of black
criminals.
people. Were the majority of black people rioters?
The vast majority of people that were rioting, yes, they're black people, and Tifa was there as well. Sure, I can acknowledge that.
No. Are the majority of black people rioting?
The majority of black people in those videos that I saw, yes, the majority were.
No. There's black people as a population. There's a black people in America. Were the majority of them rioting?
Oh no, of course not.
Well, that's the thing. You said it.
No, I didn't.
I'll play the clip. You did say it, but
okay, fine. Okay, so you're claiming. Hold on, just to clarify, you're saying that I stated that the majority of black people in this country are criminals, correct?
Yes.
That's your claim. That's your claim. Okay, cool. So we'll play it back. You could do it now or later.
Yeah, sure. I'll play it back.
Wait, guys.
Hold on, Damon. Let him play.
Which goes back to the issue of, well, that justifies my use of the N-words because when black people commit crimes, you literally said it.
Play the video. Play the video then. If I literally said it, play the video.
Hold on. Which goes back to another video that we did the other day where you have the right to call me the N-word because I'm black.
I never called you the N-word.
OJ asked me, who are your
people? Play the clip.
Yeah,
just play the clip. Play the video where I said all like the majority of black people are criminals. Play the clip.
Okay. I'll let you guys speak and then let me get the video. Then you
get the video.
While you're getting the video, Hassan. I'm asking you this as well as the other guys.
Send it to Octavio so you can share it.
Okay.
And then get the timestamp and everything.
Guys, we have to finish these last.
Just wrapping up very quickly.
Well, someone wants to bring this up, so I need to clear my name.
Yeah, I just want to hear. I want to hear what Hassan has to say. I also really want to hear what JM has to say and Octavio as well. So when I was living out in America, I was playing a lot of basketball. For a while I was in Oakland and a couple of parks in Mosswood Park as well. Playing basketball, the majority of the people that I played with, the overwhelming majority, were black. So we're playing all the time, and these were guys whose houses I went to. We had barbecue together. We went to shops together. We're buying stuff like this now. Whenever if I was dunking on them, if ever I crossed them over or whatever, and you'd see they get angry, and I heard fucking cracker, oh pig, honky, this kind of stuff, all pink belly, all kinds of shit. And you could see they were like pissed off. They were saying it and they were spitting when they were saying it. They were like getting really, really pissed off. And afterwards, we'd go to KFC. We'd go to like the 7-Eleven. They would buy me drunk. They bought me a Slurpee, right? Like we'd be chilling afterwards. We'd be drinking, and it would all be good. Now, did I ever think that these guys were racist? Me personally, no, I didn't think they were racist. They didn't say the thing in a funny, jokey way. They didn't say it as a term of affection. I got called Casper all the time, and that was in a kind of, that became like a nickname that wasn't like being used as a slur. So I could tell when they were using like nicknames or they were saying it in a jokey way, and when they were saying it as a slur. They were saying that as a slur. They were pissed. I humiliated them. I dunked on them. They were pissed off, and they said it and they spat. Sometimes they said it under their breath, but I still heard it. I don't think they're racist. I think they said racist shit, but I don't think they're racist, because if they were racist, they wouldn't have invited me to their house. We wouldn't have been chilling together. They wouldn't be buying me drinks. They wouldn't lend me money when I needed money. Some of these guys bailed me out of some very fucking difficult situations. I slept on these guys' couches. They wouldn't be doing that if they were racist. So I don't think that just because somebody says shit in a moment of anger or to provoke or to piss somebody off, for me, to determine that they're racist, I need something more than that. There needs to be that actual, what we understand to be the meaning of the word racism. There needs to be that internal hatred. And you can't hate somebody and then lend them $300, let them sleep over on your couch for a couple of weeks, help them out getting a job, doing that kind of stuff. You don't do that if you're racist to somebody else. You don't. We need to have like a little bit of a tougher standard when it comes to determining what racism is.
All right. Rashid has a few questions. JM, if
Before
hold,
I have a video,
yeah,
by the way.
go on.
Do you want to do the video reaction first or answer the question real quick?
It's up to you guys.
Yeah, JM. If we flip it, Rashid says, if we flip it and I did the same video but with football hooligans and my title was stereotypical of white people, would you say I'm fully racist? This is after watching the video Jake made.
As a white person, I can say that the football hooligan trope is a recognized stereotype.
Okay, well, real quick, it was directed to JM.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, to make it clear, I don't believe in generalizing any group of people using derogatory racial language. That's why I wouldn't even entertain Damon with the racial views. So yes, I will condemn any video. If I saw a video of someone talking about hooligans and mentioning the color of them, I would question whether or not that person is racist. Absolutely.
But would you say that they are?
More than likely, yes, I would say
okay,
they are.
There you go. We got
All right.
I don't understand why people link color to behavior, unless you believe every person of a certain skin tone acts the same, which is actual a definition of racism.
So you don't believe that every person of a skin tone acts the same?
Guys.
Octavio, go ahead.
Thingy goes, Octavio, a Catholic priest got caught molesting a child. My days, man. The media really did a number on you guys. A Catholic priest got caught molesting a child. Then I named my video typical Catholic priest. Would you say I'm anti-Catholic? Yes, absolutely, because you just
you would be.
You just generalize every single priest as if pedophilia only exists. Pedophilia exists everywhere. It's literally everywhere in every organization. But the media did an extremely good job at making the world think that pedophilia only exists in the Catholic Church, which is absolute bullshit.
No, well, it doesn't only exist there, but
it's a small minority. But guess what? Now every priest is branded as that when they walk down the streets.
Correct.
And they even have to take their colors off because guess what? They're going to be attacked by people.
But you would agree that it's a stereotype, right?
It is a stereotype that the media created. Yeah. They did it maliciously, and they did and they did it because they're against the Catholic Church.
But stereotypes exist for a reason. But let's move on with the video.
Jake, I was talking and you literally just interrupted.
Okay, all right.
Please just be quiet. So yes, that is, I would label you as anti-Catholic. You are against the Catholic Church for whatever reason. You know, maybe you just hate the fact that they tell you to not have sex before getting married. Maybe that's the reason why you hate them so much. Maybe you believe in the red pill. I don't know, and you want to go out there and do whatever you want to do, and then they
link everything to red pill.
They tell you that that's a sin, so you hate them, and now you're going to use what the media says about them in a negative way in order for you to brand them as that. But yeah, okay, yes, play the video. Let's do the video quickly.
Okay.
And hey, man, I'm just going to say it straight up. The BLM riots were a prime example of that. You had a huge portion of the Black community that rioted, destroyed billions of dollars in collateral damage. For what? A man that was on drugs, that got caught in a crime, that overdosed on drugs while he was lying on his stomach with a white man on his neck. That's the reality of that. And they rioted. There was about 25 Black people that you don't even know the names of that passed away during those 6 months of BLM riots.
Okay, so right at the beginning it says the majority of black people are right.
No. I said
Play again. Play again.
the majority. Play it again,
Play
bro.
again. Play again.
Listen
It's
again.
not-
Listen again.
Exactly where it says this.
Listen again, my friend.
That you had a huge portion of the black community rioted.
Stop there then. Okay. So a huge portion of the black community, that means more than 50%, correct?
No, portion.
No.
A portion, a
doesn't.
huge portion. I didn't say
It means
majority.
a portion,
Play
and
again
not a
because
portion.
Jake interrupted
A
while the
portion
video
of,
was playing.
a portion of what though?
A huge
No.
portion of
Jake
blacks.
interrupted while the video was playing. Play it again without interruptions.
Portion of the black were all right. And hey man, I'm just gonna say it straight up. The BLM riots were a prime example of that. You had a huge portion of the black community that.
There you go.
Yeah. Is BLM not part of the black community?
No.
The black community
No, they're not black.
No.
The BLM people aren't black.
Is KKK part of the white community?
That what? Say that again.
Is the KKK part of the white community?
Yes, they are. They're white people. They're part of the community.
Are there a huge
of
Alright,
white
alright,
people.
alright.
Yes.
Okay.
If you
Are
want to
there a
base it off
huge
race, yes. The KKK is part of the white community.
Okay, are they a
And there
huge
was a
portion?
portion of white people that were racist. Yes.
Okay,
Are they-
are they representative of the white community?
No, not as a
There you
whole.
Is
go.
BLM
We had a
representative?
huge portion, which is BLM. A
Is
huge
BLM
portion.
representative of the black community?
Yes, because
They
they're
claim
black.
that they are.
No, you're
They
wrong.
claim
No,
that
you're
they
wrong.
are.
They
You're wrong.
dude,
You're wrong.
they're
That's
por-
where you're
dude,
wrong.
they're a portion, and they're a
Bro,
big
if
portion.
KKK is not representative of the white community, then you
Yes,
can't
they're a
say
portion of the
the KKK representative of the
Dude,
black.
the
Do
what?
they
Wait
represent
a
the
second. Wait a second. JM, you're making a mistake here. The BLM claim that they represent the black community. The KKK,
And the
never
KKK claim
claimed.
they represent the white
Okay,
community.
no, wait. The KKK don't claim to represent the white community. They
Yes,
never
they do.
did.
It's white
they
power.
didn't.
What are you talking
No,
about?
they didn't. Yeah, but they're
White
not claiming
power.
that they represent. No,
White
they don't.
power. That's their
Listen,
slogan.
that
White power.
isn't a claim. That isn't a claim that you represent the white community. That
All
claim,
right,
that
okay,
claim
all
is that
right.
you're
You know
a white
what?
supremacist.
So
But
real
they
quick,
don't-
No, there's a
they don't- they
difference.
can't expect
There's a
BLM.
Damon,
difference.
you're not gonna get to him, bro. You're not gonna get to him. So real
Yeah,
quick,
that makes sense. That's why I didn't say it.
Hassan said that.
No, you
that
don't
I said,
understand
hold on,
something. It
No,
doesn't,
you don't
it doesn't make
understand.
sense.
guys.
You don't understand.
Hassan claimed that I said that the majority of black people are out there committing crimes. That's what the claim was. I said you have a huge portion of the black community, which is the BLM movement, that are out there doing these crimes.
No,
Well, let's
Okay.
get
How
to
is
let's
the
get
black
to
community-
the
how
root
is
of
the
it. Jake.
BLM a huge portion of the black community?
Yeah, what percentage?
okay,
Let's ask you. What
so this
percentage?
is so
what
again,
percentage of
when they
BLM
did literally billions of dollars of damages, billions, you had 25 to 30 black people that died during those riots, bro.
Right.
And it was black people that
What
killed them.
percentage
That's
of
was
the
black-
black?
All of the murders, that happened. Hold on. All of the murdering that happened were done by black people
Okay.
that killed
What
other black
percentage-
people. Hold on. These
Can
are
I
facts.
address,
What
Jake,
percentage of
can I just,
BLM?
can I
What
just,
percentage of the- what percentage of the black? What
BLM
percentage of the black
was a huge
population-
portion. It was
No,
6 months of
I'm asking-
writing. It was 6 months of
Just answer
writing.
the question. Of the black population in the US, okay,
Mhm.
how many black people are in the US approximately? Is it 13 million or something?
They represent about 13% of the United
How
States.
many millions
40
is
million,
How
40
many
million,
million is that?
Do the
40
math.
40 million plus.
40 million.
I don't know. 13%. It's not 40 million. That'll probably be less.
10% would be 35 million if it's 350 million population. So
Okay,
30
fine, fair enough. Let's just do 40 then.
Okay.
I didn't
Right.
do the math myself. I'm like, well, that seems like too high, but
So you got
maybe you're
40
right.
million.
So
You got
I'll
40
argue
million.
against it.
You got 40 million black people in America. Give me an approximate number of those that identify as BLM and that were rioting.
Well, yeah, it was a very huge proportion.
Give me a
So-
figure.
So
okay, if
8 million?
No, that's majority, my friend. That's majority.
Give me a
so-
figure.
Well, a huge proportion. I
Well,
mean,
let's hear the figure, Nelson. I want to hear the figure, approximate figure.
Yeah, if I guess I had to guess, I don't know the exact figure,
It's a percentage.
JM. But
percentage.
yeah, if I had a percentage, I would definitely say in the millions, either
Is it
one
what?
or
No,
two. But that's a huge
percentage.
portion.
That's
That's a
not
huge portion of
percentage.
people.
So you
Percentage.
said millions
So
of black people
During
are
that
rioting.
6 months, during that 6 months, you had all the major cities of black people rioting. In fact, they tried to do curfews. so that people don't do this, but they disobeyed the curfew. They were still doing this, billions of dollars worth of damage. Do you really think that a small portion of black people would go out there and do this? Hold on. Do you think that's a small portion? Again, this is me saying this is a huge portion of the black community, which is BLM. And you've already acknowledged that they're a terrorist organization and that they're influenced by the mainstream media. And these people were going out there rioting, causing billions of damage worth of material, collateral damage. And you had 25 black people die. So again, is my assumption of saying it's a huge portion? How is that inaccurate? And my second question is I don't know I don't know. What's 1 million out of 40? I don't know. But it's not bullshit. Answer my question. Okay. So again, you claimed, Hassan, that I said the majority of black people are criminals. That's what you said. And I said, play the video where I said the majority of black people are criminals. Again, you failed on. I didn't say that.
You said a huge portion of the black
community. Did I say majority or huge? Did I say majority or huge?
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
The difference is
portion of the black community isn't that the majority?
Again, a huge portion could be 1 million people out of 40 million. That's still a huge amount of people.
No, it's not a huge portion.
Can I say
1 million people riding is huge.
I've been quiet for a really long time.
You don't think that 1 million people out of 40 million is huge?
First of all,
that's a huge amount of people.
Portion of the black community.
That's a huge amount of people.
Majority.
I didn't say majority.
Wait,
bro.
Wait,
you guys
Octavio,
are fucking liberals, bro. This is crazy.
Jake, hold up a second.
Let us go.
Can I go? Because I haven't said anything for a while.
Go ahead, Damon.
Right. So I think you guys are misinterpreting something. He didn't say an overwhelming majority. He didn't say an overwhelming proportion. He said a huge portion. That just means that whatever that portion is, the amount of people is still huge. It's semantics, I know, but it was a vague term the way
very vague.
If he said a huge percentage, then that's something else. He just said that the portion was huge. So that means that even if it was a billion people and you only take 1% of that, that's still a huge portion.
So now, hold on. Let's get the language right. A huge portion of the community.
Of the community, of whatever it is, if you take a portion, even if that portion is 1%, if the end result is a large number of people, huge, that portion is still going to be huge. He's not saying a huge percentage. Like I said, it's semantics. It's semantics, but hear me out. Look at what we see happening now. If you look at Jews versus Muslims, right? Mm-hmm. When Jews are saying that they're being attacked, they feel threatened. And when you see Muslims saying, "But look, we're peaceful," what did we hear after 9/11? The big defense that was always used is if you're talking about how prevalent extremism is in Islam, right? When they say it's a tiny amount, it's okay. Yeah, it's there's a difference between radicalized. There's a difference between extreme. But if you say that it's tiny, now I think that the figures that the CIA coughed up, I think it was something like 75% are like.
Damon, just before you carry on, I think JM didn't mention Islamophobia as an example, and you said you're conflating two different communities. Are we doing the same here?
No, we're not doing the same here. The reason I'm picking on this is because we can look at two people who are different, where the numbers of people are relevant. If you look at the numbers of people between white and black, it's a little bit closer. So I'm choosing a big distinction here. That's why I'm using that example. Right? Okay. Now, if we are to say that, let's say, I think at one point shortly after 2001, the number of, I'm not 100% certain on this, I'm sorry, maybe Jake or Hassan, if you know better than I do, which is worse out of radicalized and extremist? Which is the more dangerous one? Because one is you wouldn't do the acts, but you agree with them, and the other is you actually partake.
Radicalized.
So radicalized are the ones that will partake and do the actions, right?
Yeah, because extremists is just views, and radicalized.
All right, so I think they said at one point that it was between 2/3 and 3/4 of Islamic people across the entire globe are the ones that are extremists, right? That's the softer one. But the ones that were radicalized are a much smaller group. I think they said at one point that the highest it was 18 to 20%.
That's
Right?
quite.
Now that was peak around that time of Al Qaeda, like shortly after 2001. Now let's assume the softest thing, right? That it isn't even 18%, it's not 20%, it's not even 10%. Let's scroll it all the way down to 1%. And let's say,
Still
only 1%.
That's 180 million.
Well, if we say that 100% of those people are willing to go out and kill Jews, those are the ones that are the full-on radicals, right? And then you say, well, it's only 1%. The Jews are crazy to be threatened by this, right? What's the global population of Jews?
14 million?
7 million. 7 million.
No.
And 1%, dude, Google it, man. Look up at any stats that you've got.
7 million.
7 million. I think it might be getting close to 8 million, but 7 million % of the global population are Jewish. And what's 1% of 2 billion? Because we're approaching 2 billion when it comes to Muslims. So that's 20 million. So you're talking about a global population that are more than doubled by 1% of the Muslim community. So if you're saying that 1% wants to kill you, that's just 1%. That is a huge portion of people.
That's a huge portion of people.
David, I get your point. First of all, it's 15.7 million Jews. I did Google it. It's 15.
Even if it's 15.7, even if it's 15.7, because I pulled up a number here that's 7.
I get your analogy.
That 15% is still smaller than 20 million.
Guys, we have to finish the show. Rashid just wanted to ask this question. And I do need to do the last thoughts, guys. We can talk about this forever, trust me. And we're going to have more lives on this. You guys read that I disagreed with Jake's video and naming that title stereotypical of Black women is very ignorant and wrong. I want to know why he felt he needs to name that title. So quickly, Jake, before you give your last thoughts, just answer Rashid's question.
Can I respond to
Damon?
That wasn't my issue with the video. It was actually the tagline. Typical Black women. I'm going to
answer the question.
Can I respond to Damon and then I'll be quiet and then Jake can go and whoever wants to go and then that's
okay. Well, we can't have a back and forth. Like
okay. I'll just express why I have an issue with huge portion of the Black community. So huge portion means percentage of the Black. The literal definition of portion. Okay, well, fair enough. Jake can disagree with it, and Damon as well. But a huge portion of which community? He says the Black community. He didn't specify what segment of the community, and so on. He said a huge.
It's vague. Yeah, very vague.
So he's estimating 20 to 25 million people protesting the BLM riots.
No, I did not. I said one.
That's what he's projecting, and that's it.
I gave you an example.
Hold on. Let Hassan finish, and then Jake, you can address him on your own.
No, I'm not going to address him. I'm going to answer the question afterwards. But go ahead, Hassan.
I think minds are made up, and I think we're watering down definitions. We're presenting misrepresented perspectives.
That's you.
And we're being disrespectful. We're interrupting people while they're talking for the sake of it, and trying to hide our true intentions and wasting everybody's time. But there you go.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Can I answer the
question? Jake, please answer.
Can you bring it up on the screen, please?
And give your last thoughts, please.
Yeah. Can you bring it up on the screen? Rashid's question. Exactly.
There you go.
Okay. So you obviously he said that he disagreed with the stereotypical Black woman. It's very ignorant and wrong. I want to know why he felt the need to put that on the thumbnail. Fair enough. So,
sorry, quickly, what was that video though? What exactly was it briefly?
It was about Brittany Renner. She went crazy by doing twerks on what's his name? He's a Black comedian. And she was being outrageous. She was being disrespectful. She was acting like a full-on rap community Black woman, which is stereotypical, by the way. And so the reason why I put that on the thumbnail, okay, was because Brittany Renner is a very good representation of the Black ratchet woman that we see a lot of women that embrace Black culture. If you look at Black culture, the rap community has a huge influence on the United States, not only just the United States, the entire world. Okay. Black artists, Jay-Z, you can name them all. Jay-Z, from Beyonce to all these people. They're billionaires not because the United States loves them, but it's the whole world that loves the black rap artists that promote this ratchet behavior. And there is a stereotype. Stereotypes exist for a reason. So when they say, okay, Mexicans love rice and beans, that's a stereotype because the vast majority of Mexicans do like rice and beans. When they say, oh, they're gardeners, the vast majority of Mexicans are gardeners and carpenters. You know, like they come into this country, they do the hard works, or the ones that mow the grass on the lawns. It's a stereotype. But if you look at in everyday community, a lot of Mexicans do that. If you look at the black community, there's stereotypes there. So again, I'm addressing the stereotypical black woman that is acting outrageous. And if you look at even Kevin Samuels has stated this himself, that says black women are the most unattractive because they're the most aggressive, masculine women out of all the races. And I sent you that on the chat a long time ago. I was never addressed on that. But yes, black women tend to be less desirable by all races. And studies show this, that the least desirable by other races because of how they act.
That's not why, but anyway.
Now this is a stereotype. Hold on, can I finish?
Okay, go ahead.
This is a stereotype for sure, which is why I said the typical stereotypical woman. This is her acting like the stereotypical woman that we already know on that. That's all it was.
All right.
And not only that, hold on. And not only that, there's a second reason. Not only that, I already knew that titling that on the thumbnail is going to get more clicks to get my perspective across. It had nothing to do with racism, had nothing to do with any of that. It was one to get people to view my point of view. And then two, I wasn't lying. This is a stereotypical act. And that's what it was.
Okay,
so hold on, John Michel, we're gonna address him. We're gonna address him soon, bro. Let him finish his final thoughts, please.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do it on your final thoughts. So I'll do my final thoughts real quick. So of course, I'm gonna say this: systematic racism does not exist. If you want to make that argument, you have to address some type of law that says because of your skin color, you're gonna be oppressed in our country. There's no law on that is there. The only one that I can think of is affirmative action that actually benefits black people that you claim are being oppressed in the West or in the United States in general. So again, systematic racism is just a fucking reason for the media to tell black people that they're victims. Victimhood mentality. BLM is another example of that. Going to the racist thing that Hassan said, well, you called me racist, or I'm sorry, you called me a nigger. I never did that. And again, I never said, Hassan, you are a nigger. He cannot pull that fucking clip out because it never happened. Then when Hassan says that, well, you said the vast majority or the majority of black people are criminals, I said, pull it up. You said, well, it's a huge portion of the black community. Then you want to say, well, you can't count BLM as the black community, even though they are black. Sounds like you're nitpicking there. So that's another thing. Never happened. So again, time and time again, I have to debunk these claims that you guys want to say that I'm a racist person, which is fine. Who cares? But at the end of the day, you have no claim on it. You have no fucking evidence on it. You have nothing at all to affect it. And then when Rashid, which shout out to Rashid, bro. He's asking a good question. Why was it because of the stereotypical black woman? Trust me, there's stereotypes in every single race. The difference is the black community have a huge influence when it comes to pop culture, the rap, the movies. I'll tell you this. If you want to claim that racism is based off of a systematic power, black people have way more power than us Hispanics. So by that definition, if you want to claim it because, the white people have all the power, so therefore blacks can't be racist to white people. Therefore, by that definition, us Mexicans, Hispanics, can't be racist to you guys because you guys hold way more power in this country than we do. So I'm just saying, based off those standards, me saying stereotypical, me saying all that shit, if you're going to make that claim, I'm not saying that you are, but if you are, based off the liberal ideology, then I would say, bro, you're just acting stupid. We got to give a clear definition of that, and it wasn't the case. That's why I said stereotypical. Stereotypes exist in everything, whether it's gays, the race, etc. That's all it is. And I'll end my final thoughts on that.
JM, go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, Jake, your use of the word stereotypical black woman is I understand why Rashid finds it offensive. To me, the most offensive part was a tagline where you used typical black women. So you're suggesting that Brittany Renner is the typical. When you use the word typical black women, this is no longer about stereotypes. Because we talk about a typical. We're literally talking about, and I actually brought out the definition here, showing all the characteristics that you would usually expect from a particular group or thing. Brittany Renner is not a typical. It doesn't represent the typical black woman. Yes, you could argue there's a negative stereotype of black women that she was embodying in her behavior. But to say you have to understand when you use the word, you were wrong for saying she typical black women. Do you acknowledge that you were wrong for doing that? Before I move on,
Are you allowing me to speak on your last thoughts?
Just quickly, and I could come back. I just want to clarify that.
You are absolutely 100% wrong. Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So, yeah, to say someone that is, by that knowledge, by that logic, anyone that is behaving in a negative manner, the KKK, for example, I can look at the KKK's the overt racism, and by Jake's standard, I can say that is a typical white person. Yeah, that's whatever to understand. That's the logic that Jake is coming with. You can look at a negative behavior of a person, and you can then attribute that negative behavior as typical of that specific demographic.
Can I ask a question? That's for an elaboration.
Let him finish his last thought.
That's very wrong and very ignorant, if I'm honest. But anyway, let me go to my last thoughts. So yeah, we spoke about, and also just quickly to address what he said about Mexicans can't be racist to blacks. Again, there's a misunderstanding of what racism is and what racial discrimination is. Racial discrimination is when you factor in power. Anyone could be racist. I could be racist. If I'm in a position of power and I discriminate, I could be racist. If I believe that white people are inherently inferior to me as a black person, that's me being racist. So yes, Jake, you can be racist as a Hispanic if you believe that black people are inherently inferior to you. You can be racist. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that you could potentially be. So you being Hispanic has absolutely no bearing on you being racist. It may have a bearing on you being able to be racially discriminatory towards someone. There's a difference, okay? Now, regarding the last thoughts, so again, systemic racism has nothing to do with laws. Systemic racism is the conclusion that one comes to after examining whether or not there is examples of institutional racism within institutions. If you are able to establish that there's racism within institutions at institutional level, then you can make the claim of systemic racism. Systemic.
Guys, whoever's eating, please just mute yourself.
Yeah. Systemic refers to the system, a system that governs society, the system that governs society. In fact, Rastafarians will call the society the system. It's not representative of one specific institution. It governs the whole of society. So systemic racism is the result or the conclusion one can come to if it's determined whether or not racism exists in this high level within institutions. And I think I proved that. I think I showed that there was evidence of institutional racism within some very key institutions. I think I demonstrated that within the criminal justice system, the police system. I touched on it with the educational system. I was actually going to go on to talk about the health industry and highlight how even they have the reports within the NHS have highlighted discriminatory practices and institutional racial practices when it comes to treating Black people within the NHS. These are things again that they have highlighted. These are not my conclusions; these are their conclusions. So yeah, I think when it comes to actually determining whether or not systemic racism exists, I think I did a good job of proving that.
Okay, Drinky, would you like to give your last thoughts, please?
Sorry. Yeah, so I didn't quite get to explain the reasoning behind the question that I asked. It'll lead into the final thoughts. So the reason I asked the question that I did is because it highlighted that JM's entire position relies on one thing happening to or one race being affected by another, and that there is zero or there are no other factors that would go into being able to infer the conclusion that there's institutional or systemic racism. Well, when I highlighted it being a part of law, the very first thought that came to my mind, it was actually came from Damon, because Damon highlighted Jim Crow laws. If you look at any of the Jim Crow laws, there's clear language in there that distinguishes between white and Black people. Yet those types of examples, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, I don't see any of those examples in any Western country in present day. So if that's the case, then all of James' positions rely on inference. Really,
he uses his own definition, though. Sorry to interrupt, I have to repeat it. He's using his own definition where systemic racism and institutional racism, he just conflates it. So that's why he doesn't understand institutional racism.
Be quiet, Damon. Just be quiet, please.
Otherwise, you guys.
I'm sorry.
If Drinky Poo is fine with that, then who cares, bro? If Drinky Poo's fine with that,
no.
Then I have to come in there. If he's continue to speak, I have to come in then.
No. Exactly. If Damon's going to chime in, then John Michel would has the right. This is Drinky's final thoughts, guys. I know we can get triggered by it, and we can.
Nobody's getting triggered. Go ahead, Peeky Poo.
Yo, Jake. You know what? All right, go ahead, Drinky.
Yeah. So, it just seemed really apparent that the majority of the position was strictly inference and conflation. And I didn't see any examples of proof outside of one thing happening from one race to another. And as an example, another thing that you could look at is, let's say in reference to law, are the people that are enforcing the laws, are they themselves participating in any sort of racist acts outside of being law enforcement? As an example, if there's a sheriff that is the head of a local chapter of Ku Klux Klan, then you can make a decent argument that, hey, him and his underlings might be participating in racist acts. But again, JM just said, no, there's no way to prove it outside of one thing happening to one race versus another. So I don't know. I would just recommend to reevaluate the position and really think about the entirety of the situation. And that's all. Thank you.
What the hell is that noise in the background? Guys, I enjoyed the debate. I think it was a great debate. I just want to give a shout out to Damon and John Michel. I think it was absolutely great debate. In terms of Jake, we are going to be doing a reaction to, he said that we weren't able to debunk it because we couldn't provide evidence. Well, we will do a reaction. We're going to go through it, and we're going to be able to prove it to you that that's the case. I had to kick him out because just being rude for the sake of being rude is just childish. I'm not going to tolerate it.
Damon, I can't do a handshake in person. I'm giving you a virtual handshake because I see
Respect,
debate.
dude. Respect.
I just see debate as just it gets heated, we get fiery as men, but at the end of the day, no hard feelings on my part.
No, like I said at the beginning, man. Like I said at the beginning, like we can disagree with shit, but we can still be men about it. It's a shame Jake got kicked. I don't think he was being rude for the sake of being. But
No.
look, man.
He was. The thing is, what he does all the time, Damon, is he tries to have the last word. He does it on purpose. Damon, take my word. I've been doing lives with.
Man,
with
you know
Jake.
me. You know
Hold
me. I
on,
want to give everybody the
Damon,
benefit.
Damon. I've been doing lives with Jake for a very long time. I know how he behaves. I know what he does, and I told him I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. It's very simple. People, when they come to his platform, they are respectful. He was extremely respectful today for the most part, but there was parts of there was parts within the show where he was already trying to be disrespectful, and I'm not going to put up with that at all. So it's like either behave yourself or that's it, you're done. But yeah, shout outs to everyone.
Anyway, though, respect to JM for the talk. Respect to Sam for the questions and Drinky. Nice points there, and thank you, Octavio. And I want to say thank you to Jake too, because it was good to get his insight as well, especially, and he was, as you even said, respectful for the most part. So like, just thank you to all the guys and anybody in the chat who was asking questions, Rashid as well.
You could have done the Trump Biden one. That's why I'm interested in the Trump Biden one.
We can come back to that. Because that's why I mentioned it at the beginning of my opening. I wanted to discuss all the stuff, and especially Candace Owens as well.
Yeah, let's arrange. Let's arrange the debate in the group chat and get to the bottom of this, because I think the Trump Biden one is going to be a great debate, and the Candace Owens as well. And I want to give a shout out to Drinky as well. Drinky, you need to join us more often. I like it.
Can I just ask JM one thing about his point? I said I wanted to touch on it. It's not going to drag things out.
Damon, we're not going to get into another debate.
No, it's not going to drag things out. Honestly, it's a really tiny thing. It's just that I think it would be interesting because it was his closing comment. It was regarding Jake, actually. And what you said, like when you were saying that, asking him about his tagline on that. Jake specifically did say one of the reasons why he did it was because it was to generate clicks. Can you agree with that? That being inflammatory like that, using that language, would have generated clicks in today's society? Can you see that?
As I said, the stereotypical black woman, even though that was controversial, I could see that as being clickbait. And
Right.
I always could. I almost would excuse him, because when you say stereotype, you're not actually making a critique of a whole group. But when you use the word typical black women, I have a big issue with that, because that actually suggests that most black women are like her.
Yeah, but it could have generated those kind of like hate clicks, right? Or those used the wrong term. Like, I agree. If he said stereotypical, it could have been defended. You could defend that easier than him saying typical. Yeah. But when he said he did it for clicks, do you believe him on that? Do you believe he did it for clicks? Can you understand that or respect that at least as being a reason?
I'll be honest with you, Damon. He did it because he believes that it's a typical black woman. We have to look at a pattern of behavior here, and I know you may disagree, but there's too much evidence. And I didn't want to say this, but there's actually a video of him saying that he is racist. I didn't want to bring it up because I wanted to give him the opportunity. That's why I asked for the question.
That's why
Nelson and I did a video way back.
And also Damon,
he said, "I am racist."
Damon, a pattern of behavior. That's extremely well put. This is the reason why I couldn't tolerate that, because it's a pattern of behavior. Like I explained it to you, Damon. Even yesterday, I had to just hang up on him because, again, it's a pattern of behavior that we've seen show after show after show. Instead of just behaving and just being normal, I don't even mind sometimes him being a bit whatnot. But for the most part, it's a pattern of behavior, bro. Nothing against Jake. Jake knows. I've always given him free reign to be on my platform and do whatever he wants to do. But I'm trying to have intelligent debates. I'm trying to have something like what we had today. That's what I'm trying to have. Okay, and I'm not going to tolerate any funny nonsense. But anyways, guys, I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay. Where's Damon? Okay, Damon's gone. But guys, anyways, I'll see you guys next time. You take care. Drinky, please join us more often. It would be nice to have you on the panel. Great points.
Sven, are you? Tim, are you going right now? Can you stay on for a couple of minutes after you got to go off?
Yeah. No. I don't have to go right now, but I need to
Stay
end
on for a bit. Yeah.
the stream's been going on for too long. It's almost 4 hours, bro.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All right.
All right, guys.
Take it easy.
Thanks for
Yeah.
everyone joining.